The Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Wow, I remember last week I had a really good start to the week because it was a Monday and I kept making a bunch of mistakes. And then today we seem to be set up for that as well because I don't even have my headphones.
Oh, dear.
Testing. Are you there? Hi, Sue. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
And Fred is here as well, the Hall of Famer. Hi, Fred.
Hey, Mark.
Do I have his mic on? Because honestly, I don't even know.
Yeah, you do.
Good. I have the right mic
got
on.
that.
Ethan has retrieved the headphones.
Thank you.
It's there's very few things I need to do my job. Really, if you think about it, and this is one of the only things I need, and I forgot it in the other room.
Mark, it's sort of like walking up to the plate without your bat if you're a baseball player.
Really, it is kind
bit.
of. I can't. All right, I'm going to put them. Actually, I'm going to put them on right now. You ready for that?
Good deal.
Whoa. All right, there we go. I can hear everybody. I don't often do that, but I did leave it out. Fred was kind of hovering around my office when I was going through some things on X, and I think he was trying to tell me, hey, the show's going to start here in a couple of minutes, and candidly, I did lose track of time a little bit. Sue, how was your weekend? It's beautiful out there today, isn't it?
Oh, it's gorgeous. Went for a bike ride. We went to the wedding, and it was in the 50s, but it was beautiful out at St. Albans. So we had a great weekend.
Oh, that's right. You had the wedding. That's where it was, at St. Albans?
Yeah, it was
Beautiful
really
out there.
nice.
Like at the club itself? Or?
Well, yeah, I don't know because I've not been to the club itself.
all right.
So I just punched it in and went.
Beautiful golf
But
clubs.
boy, was it pretty.
My friend Larry, who went to Greece with me, he's telling me I'm going to get on those courses again this summer. So I'm looking forward to that. Fred, you have a nice weekend. We were watching baseball. Look, I'm so excited right now that the Cardinals are off to a good start. I watched a lot of baseball. It was a lot of fun.
I just can't wait to watch the next game.
Yeah, and, it's early. I don't know what's going to end up happening. But, look, they're giving us a reason to at least believe. I think every team, this may have changed yesterday, but every single team in the National League Central, as of yesterday morning, had a winning record. They were above 500.
Wow.
Everybody. The Reds, the Pirates, everyone.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. So, then there's a team like the Mets. I don't know if you know about the Mets.
I haven't followed.
I think they've lost like 10 or 11 in a row or something
Well,
like
good.
that.
It's the
they're
Mets.
imploding.
But they're not supposed to suck, right? Every year, it's so funny. I love the Mets. They're not supposed to suck. They spend money. They suck every year. And that makes us happy only because that was such a great rivalry in the
exactly.
in the 1980s. All right, well, we'll get moving here for a Monday. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We'll have someone here from the America First Policy Institute that's going to kind of talk us through some of the things that are happening with the peace talks in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Our friend Paul Mauro a little later this hour as well. And we are going to talk a little baseball in two different times this afternoon. We'll talk sports with Cusumano at 4:45 like we always do. And then Scotty Warmann, host for FanDuel Sports Midwest, will not only talk about the Cardinals, but the Blues wrapped up the season. Very strong fashion. They didn't make the playoffs, which is kind of surprising only because I think 90% of the teams in the NHL make the playoffs. But, there's something I think to give the fans some hope as well on that front. And as I think people know, I'm not the biggest hockey expert or anything like that, but I'd like to see the Blues do well.
Well, yeah.
So I got a couple of stories from the weekend that I will maybe share with you at 4 o'clock. There was something I really wanted to do. I sent Fred a note because I was in, and Sue, I sent this to you as well. I was in my record room.
Oh, I got it.
Experimenting, and I found the Rainbow record that has Richie Blackmore, that has Since You've Been Gone. And
So
I was
great.
playing that, and I gave you a little video sample of that. But here's what happened, and this is what I have. When I went to put that record back in the sleeve, there were 3 pieces of paper that go back to the early 1980s. And I almost had, I'll call it like a Fred moment, because it was like this nostalgia.
How about old Fred Bottenheimer over there, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't want to explain it too much because it's actually some inside radio and records type stuff that I found. And it has to be like 1982 or 83 because you'll see the songs that were listed in the radio stations. But I'm going to walk you through that. It's better if I have them in person. Becky sent me, see, I forgot about them today. They were on my kitchen counter. And I really, it's kind of cool for me to look at. It might not be as cool to describe, but I'll do it tomorrow. But I'll bring in the actual papers because I feel like if I hand around the iPad here, that's not going to give you the flavor. Because I thought about Fred almost instantaneously because it's like one of those things that he would bring in,
Yes.
from all these years ago.
Yes.
And it's completely in great shape because it was sitting in a record sleeve for all these years.
It's like opening a time capsule.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm holding out hope for finding more stuff like that
You
because
might.
I had no idea. Maybe some cash or
Did it
anything
take
like
you
that.
back to the time when you bought a Mustang and parked it outside for 2
okay.
weeks? Did it?
No,
Oh.
it did not. It did not take me back to that time. But Fred always likes to share
I
stories
heard
like
about
that.
over the weekend. One of my
did you?
sisters said, "Hey, I was sitting in the car listening to you tell that story." I'm like, "Oh boy."
Did she not know that story?
No, she didn't know that one.
Oh.
No, she didn't know that one.
That's really funny. Oh, by the way, here's something that happened this morning, and I can't remember, and I apologize, the listener who suggested this because I get a lot of messages on Instagram and on Messenger on Facebook.
Sure.
That's where people tend to try to give me trouble or get a hold of me. So there's a woman, you might remember this. I go to the High Ridge Walmart all the time.
What? I've never heard
That's
that.
kind of my special place.
Yeah,
and,
it is. It is.
I get my groceries and everything else there. I had to go this morning. Had to get my Fairlife chocolate milk. I love that stuff. It's super expensive. But the listener said, hey, I know you talk about this Walmart. This is one of my – I'm a vendor, I think she said, for the
Oh.
Walmart. So she probably works for someone who supplies Walmart with something. And she said, Scott, I told Scott about this, and he's the guy who's like the GM of the Walmart, and he knows that you talk about him. So I was in the self-checkout today, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm trying to find the message from that woman. But I see a dude, and, sometimes you can just tell.
Yes.
He looked like the boss, right? So I went up to him, and I said, hey, are you the big boss here? And he kind of shook his head. And I introduced myself, and he knew right away. He had actually heard me talking about the store at one of the fish fries. So we had a nice chat. But then it was weird because he pulls up his phone, and he goes, I took a screen capture of you, and he took a picture of me from, like, the website, where, thank God, I'm 5 years younger,
Oh
6
my
years
gosh,
younger.
it's like Dave Portnoy. He's been waiting for you to come in the pizza place.
He actually says, he showed the staff, he's like, hey, if this dude's in here, tackle him or something like that. No, I don't think he said that, but he took a picture of me to show
That's
the other
great.
people. So I don't know if I was on like, video surveillance or something, but it was nice to meet him. And I really do. I love that Walmart. I told him because it's better than the one in Fenton that's closer to Gravois Bluffs just because it's newer. And I gave him credit because I don't know if I said this on the air. Maybe I did last week. When I was walking through there on Thursday or Friday, they had a huge display right when you walk in of wiffle ball bats. And I posted that on the socials, and I said, Walmart going old school, $8.50. There's not a whole lot you can buy for kids that are just $8.50. So last night I was, we were kind of hanging out and trying to figure out what to eat dinner and wrapping up the day. And 60 Minutes was on because I'd watched the Cardinals. By the way, yesterday was great. They scored a lot of runs. It went down to the end, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But 60 Minutes was on, and I think we all have this relationship with 60 Minutes in St. Louis where we're not sure if we can truly trust them because of what they've done and the reporting that they've done about St. Louis. But Cecilia Vega had a really interesting story, and this is going to kind of walk us into the next segment here. I want to play some of this because they were talking about getting rid of the HEU, which is the highly enriched uranium that Iran has. And they kind of told the narrative after the fall of the Soviet Union in the the era after the Cold War. It became very clear that certainly Iran even then wanted to develop a nuclear weapon. We've known that for decades, right? So they discover an HEU plant after the fall of the Soviet Union in what became Kazakhstan. And they have uranium there that is enriched to 90%. That's enough to make a lot of bombs. The U.S. goes in, and this is part of the story. It's very unique. We took the stockpile. It was something called Project Sapphire. They brought it all back covertly and very, very carefully. Every gram of each HEU was secured, and it was a very snowy, cold night. They took it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. There's a compound in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. God knows why, but there is. So then the question is that the story was about last night. Can you do the same now with what we're looking at with Iran? So the experts that they had on say you need a secure perimeter. So it would take, again, there's just one person's or a group of people's opinions, but he's saying you need thousands of military to get, the experts into the mountains where they think this is stored. So in other words, it's not strictly a military operation. The military can do their part, but you have to get the experts in there so they know what they're taking. There's tunnels that are so far underground we can't get to them even with our bunker busting bombs, right? So the question that they raised last night is, can you raid that facility? And by the way, it could be in a couple of different places. We're not, sure. And the experts say, look, special forces have been training for this for a long time to get into bunkers, whether it's Iran or wherever. So I took the answer to that is yes. But, they got into this issue, and I think it's a fair issue that nothing was obliterated last summer. This whole use of obliteration by Trump is just not accurate. So there's no doubt that the strikes last summer and the war set back the capabilities, but they still have their knowledge and they have the enriched uranium, right? So they have close to 1,000 pounds of uranium that's enriched to 60%. That is nearly ready for a bomb. So here's some of the conversation from last night.
What can you do with that?
So that is enough material for, if you enrich it just a little bit more, for 10 to 11 nuclear bombs.
Nuclear analysts have become increasingly concerned about another site in Iran known as Pickaxe Mountain. Satellite images from February show an entrance to what's believed to be a massive nuclear facility deep under solid rock.
So the visuals are really interesting. You see these big mountains, you see maybe a little bit of a compound, then you see some roads blocked, etc.
On your way to Iran's stockpile and get it and remove it?
I don't think that there is a lasting, durable solution to Iran's nuclear program through military means.
Scott Roker was a top official in the NNSA, a $24 billion agency buried inside the Department of Energy. He left in 2021.
If there was a deal between the United States and Iran for the United States to take possession of that material, it would be the National Nuclear Security Administration that would lead that effort.
So that's what Trump says he has, or that's what he wants. He wants a deal. He claims that there is that deal. Now, there's more talks tomorrow, right?
Roker used lessons learned from Project Sapphire to remove nuclear material from countries around the world and ship it to the U.S. for safekeeping. So far, the NNSA has removed more than 16,000 pounds of HEU.
There was agreement in place with the countries, and so that's a really key fact here. You want to have a willing partner who's working with you hand in hand.
Cooperation.
Exactly.
Can it be done without that?
I've never seen it done without that. Never in my experience have I seen that.
If your phone rang tomorrow and your former colleague said, hey, come back, we're going into Isfahan to package this up and get it out of the country, would you go?
I would go in a heartbeat.
That's interesting, isn't it? Now, so
That's
this is
scary.
It is scary. What it tells you is that look, this is not a success without getting this, UAE, without getting this uranium. How do you get it? Do you get it through talks? Can you trust that? Can you get into the compounds? It ain't going to be done in a week here. Okay, so this is going to be extended. Now, the people that they talked to on the 60 Minutes story may be a little strange because they talked to people that said, yeah, we need to do this because they're too close and they have this material. So we're going to keep talking about it here this afternoon. Our first guest, Jacob Olidort, will weigh in on all this coming up.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the roads, we've got a vehicle fire. Now, this is eastbound 70 approaching Highway K. They've got the right lanes down. Now, I'm not seeing any smoke currently, but they still are dealing with it. So if you are traveling in that area, just expect a little bit of a delay. Now, it's going against rush hour, and westbound traffic looks fine out of downtown. It's a little slow at K. 64 westbound. Moderate volume, especially around Hampton and around 270, and again out at Prospect. We've got 55 in really good shape. But if you're headed into Illinois, more road work coming off the Poplar has caused a delay on the Missouri side. It's back to Jefferson. Then we had an accident reported east of Jefferson. So kind of a slow go again if you're headed into Illinois. Also on the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Well, I spent a little time at the Missouri Athletic Club, the West location, over the weekend. Did a little racquetball. They got great things planned for both downtown and out west. The Kentucky Derby is coming up here in just, I think it's only about 2 weeks. I got to check this. It's always the first Saturday in May, of course. So let me see if I can do the math right on this. It would be, that's a week from this Saturday. So they're doing a big party on May 2nd at the West location. You do need to register for that, but that's always a lot of fun. They do that every year at the MAC. There's always great, things that go on that you should mark your calendars for and just kind of keep track on. I've never played squash before. They got some squash camps. It's a big deal at the MAC. They have some international tournaments tournaments that take place there. But if you're interested in learning about that, and they do this with other sports as well, you get signed up. And then the other event that is happening a week from today, which I think is really important, you're going to hear from St. Louis Prosecuting Attorney Melissa Price Smith, the U.S. Attorney Tom Albus from this district, Gabe Gore, who is the St. Louis Circuit Attorney, and Matthew Price, the Western District U.S. Attorney, at the MAC Speaker Series downtown. That's a week from tomorrow. There's a great reception, a lunch, and a program. And that's something that you really should be dialed into if you care about the St. Louis region. You can always find out more at mac-stl.org for the Missouri Athletic Club.
According to MasterCard, nearly half of small businesses have been a victim of a cyber attack. As cybercrime escalates, ThrottleNet is calling on businesses to strengthen their security posture by taking a free online IT security audit right from your desk. This 3-minute online assessment provides an immediate score to see security gaps and vulnerabilities in your network. For 26 years, ThrottleNet has supported your business IT everything right here in St. Louis. In fact, no client of ThrottleNet has ever paid a ransom. So visit throttlenet.com/971 to take the free assessment today.
Meet Linda. She's stuck in a school pickup line, thinking about what to make for dinner. Are the kids' practice jerseys clean? If she sent out that last email before leaving work. But you know what she's not thinking about? Her HVAC system. Linda is a preferred partner with Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Installation. Members get 2 HVAC system checks per year. We clean and inspect your HVAC systems at each visit. Partners also get priority service and exclusive discounts starting at just $19 per month. Life is chaos, but with Air Comfort Service, you'll have peace of mind with your HVAC system. Visit aircomfortservice.com today. After all, comfort is our middle name.
You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show, 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I'll play one more bite here from that 60 Minutes story that was kind of interesting last night. And it was about whether or not, because look, I think one of the things that I learned from this story, again, I got to take it with a grain of salt, 60 Minutes doesn't always get it right, is that in order to secure the UAE, the enriched uranium, you're going to need a pretty big operation here. Is it worth it?
An operation like this be worth risking American lives?
In my opinion, yes.
Retired Vice Admiral Robert Harward is a former Navy SEAL and Deputy Director of U.S. Central Command. He led elite special operations in the Middle East and says an operation in Iran could take many weeks and require a large footprint involving all the branches of the military.
It's high risk. You have to occupy territory, you have to confront, you have to force your way in. So all those risks are inherent in that operation, but we can do it.
He says it's worth it, but that's, that's boots on the ground. That's a little different, right?
It's been said troops would have to secure a full perimeter around any facility they'd enter. They might have to bring in their own bulldozers to clear rubble, maybe even build their own landing strip in order to pull this off as a successful operation.
That's what our military does. When we went into Afghanistan, we built a runway in the desert.
Yeah, we do these things before. Jacob Olidort is with us. He's the Chief Research Officer and Director of American Security at the America First Policy Institute. Jacob, welcome to 97.1 FM Talk in St. Louis. How are you this afternoon?
Mark, it's an honor to be with you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Did you by any chance see, I was playing some audio from that 60 Minutes piece last night because I thought it was interesting. Did you catch that by any chance?
I did indeed. And of course, Admiral Harward, nobody knows the U.S. military better and more experienced, and the Middle East for that matter as well, than Admiral Harward. Of course, I mean, there are a number of different factors that go into whether or not this is a decision that makes sense given the overall objective. And that's a separate conversation, I think. And that, of course, is only a decision the president can make. And so, but as far as the military planning aspect and what it entails, and that's exactly my understanding, too, is that it is a rather complex and high-risk one, of course.
Well, it would seem we've pulled these off before. The question is that kind of takes us into a different territory with where this war is headed. It really expands the timetable in particular. But let's talk about the moment and where we are right now, because we've had a ceasefire. The president threatening very strongly today on Truth Social that if the ceasefire does not, continue, there's going to be bridges and, power plants that are going to be targeted. He made that threat a couple of weeks ago as well. So where do you think we are in those efforts and then renewed diplomacy? I mean, when he says, if you juxtapose the 60 Minutes story with what the president says, yeah, they've agreed to this, it's hard for me to believe that the Iranians have agreed to anything concrete.
Right. I mean, there are two different dynamics at play right now as I see it, and why it's an important moment, as you point out, in our very important operation here. And the first is we're seeing in real time, for the very first time, the chaotic state of this, let's call it changed regime. I mean, you don't have a functioning Ayatollah you have not even the third but fourth tier folks there calling the shots, trying to figure out among themselves what they actually agree to, on whose behalf they're speaking, all of those logistical and communications breakdown, which I think is an ancillary benefit of the negotiation piece, is that it showcases the state of disarray of the Iranian leadership there. Of course, there are a number of different actions we could take as far as a response. The power plants and bridges are all, in the context of this engagement, very much justified, as we heard the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations describe over the weekend. I mean, these are, in any normal environment, these are parts of civilian infrastructure. For the Iranian regime, which could not care for its civilians, and which, like its proxies, uses human beings as shields, this regime has, exploits and weaponizes all of the civilian infrastructure for its terror agenda. And so, in that context, as we saw many other engagements in our history, this is, the laws of war would dictate, again, with reasonable mitigation of collateral damage, that these are legitimate targets.
So, the one thing I don't really remember, I do kind of dip out a little bit on the weekends and I don't follow things as closely, but I certainly was dialed in today. And one thing that I don't think I've heard discussed enough, perhaps, over the weekend is the success of the blockade. Because, President Trump, and this is maybe a little hyperbolic, said last week maybe the blockade was more effective than the bombs. But what I hear, and again, you're getting information from folks inside, is that this is really putting the hurt not only on people who are maybe poor middle class in Iran, but this devalues their currency. It's really even become an issue for wealthy people who are concerned. So the blockade certainly is having an impact. The question would be, do you have the right people in power to make decisions, right?
Right. That's a big piece of it. Yeah, as I mentioned. And I think you're right, too. I mean, I think that's the calculus right now. What is it that we are trying to affect, and are we able to affect it with other means? What are the tools at our disposal? And as you pointed out, the blockade is very effective. Obviously, we don't want to get ahead of the president or his team as far as what might happen next. But, as far as cutting off the economic lifeline to the regime, applying that pressure, that's all there and in the works. And so, I think we'll see exactly how the week plays out going into Wednesday.
But Jacob, we there's no scenario where you see the Iranians saying, all right, come on over. Here's the key to the mountains. Go down there, a mile or two, and you're going to find the UAE. I mean, that's just not even remotely realistic.
Well, it may not happen in that form, and it may not happen immediately as well. And so that's the other aspect of all of this that, isn't as much discussed as a time factor. We really have the leverage on our side. We have all the cards. We're actually building that international coalition, not just regionally, but with our global partners, as far as, addressing the threats from the regime. So the question is, what timelines we're working with what tools at our disposal. And I think, and again, also looking at the blockade itself. I mean, we just imposed it. And so looking at, going into the next week and the following, what the outcomes of that.
Yeah, that's more
pressure
painful. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you think this is the tough one? You think there's any possibility that, and this would kind of have to happen from within, that you can get to a point where you have actual regime change and the people of Iran sort of stand up for themselves organically? I mean, they're blocked from the information. So many people who live there right now, outside of the economic conditions, may feel that they're winning militarily because that's what their government is telling them.
That's exactly right. I mean, and, the question, of course, nobody knows for certain, but, I think that's, again, where the time factor comes in. And we're really, the question of the people that you described, they are obviously looking at this as a form of pressure on the regime. And what, so once the more that's removed, the more incentives the regime has to explore other avenues for its own aims. And so I think that's the calculus right now. I think I have no doubt that will take place. It's a question of when and in what form, and what happens really in the moments before it does.
Right.
Is always dangerous.
Yep. A lot of questions. This could be a very key week, though. Jacob Olidort, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on here this afternoon.
Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah, we'll see you.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Illinois drivers, we've got a jam already. As you head for the Poplar Street Bridge, we've got road work going on, kind of coming off of the bridge on the Illinois side, and that is causing delays. In fact, it's going to go on until April 22nd at 4 p.m. And here's the deal. On the main line, eastbound 5564, between the Poplar Street Bridge and Barack Obama Boulevard, They've got the 2 left lanes down, and that's what's causing a delay. So we've got a jam that goes back through Jefferson, and that's putting extra volume on the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. So look for some slow-moving traffic there as well, and on northbound 55 trying to get onto the bridge. Other than that, it's not too bad. Westbound 70 is fine in the city. Moderate volume at K, and 64 has some moderate volume out at Prospect. This report is brought to you by Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. 100 years. That's how long they've been repairing and replacing garage doors in the St. Louis area. So if you need a new garage door or anything associated with it, go online at overheaddoorstlewis.com and make an appointment. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
If you need a new garage door, this could be your lucky day. Entries are now open for the $5,000 sweepstakes at Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. A winner will be chosen at random to receive $5,000 towards new garage doors, openers, or front entry doors of their choice. Enter now at overheaddoorstlewis.com.
When did watching TV go from a way to relax to a complicated chore? Well, if you're sick of huge cable bills or endlessly searching for the show everyone's talking about, then welcome to Philo. Philo's the streaming service that respects both your time and your wallet, without needing to cut the stuff you actually love to watch. This means live TV for more than 70 channels like Hallmark, History, A&E, and Lifetime, plus a huge library of blockbuster movies and classic shows, and an easy-to-use unlimited DVR that lets you save anything you want and skip all the ads when you watch. The best part? You get all this for just $25 a month when you sign up at Philo.tv. No hidden fees, no long contracts, just a genuinely great deal. And new users can try it completely free for 7 days. So head to Philo.tv, that's PHILO.tv, and experience a better way to TV. Subscriptions auto-renew at monthly rate plus applicable taxes. Cancel anytime. See terms at Philo.tv.
For the last 33 years, you've discovered that at Banner Construction, we pride ourselves on quality craftsmanship. We believe the single most important decision homeowners must make when considering an exterior restoration project is who do you hire. At Banner, we provide well-engineered, meaningful, long-term solutions to transform your home into the pride of the neighborhood. Let us help you fall in love with your home all over again. Call or visit bannerconstruction.com and have a banner day.
Mark Cox here. Join me, Annie Fry, and Mark Reardon, along with Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw of the Retirement Advisory Group, as they show you how to create a worry-free retirement. It's Tuesday, April 28th at the DoubleTree Hotel in Chesterfield at 6:30. Here are Thomas and Bob with more.
Are you nearing retirement or already retired and would like to know how to turn your 401k and IRA into a worry-free retirement? Would you like to learn the investment strategy that gives you market growth while avoiding the market losses at the same time?
Would you like to get your free personalized retirement income plan? Did you also know if you're 59 and a half or older, you can roll over your company retirement plan tax-free and have a worry-free retirement? If you're 59 and a half or older, you cannot afford to miss this event.
Have a worry-free retirement and join the official financial advisors of my show, Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw. It's at the DoubleTree Hotel in Chesterfield, Tuesday, April 28th at 6:30 p.m. Go to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
The BizDash 5K, presented by Worldwide Technology, is back. Produced by the St. Louis Sports Commission, this high-energy corporate race is St. Louis's healthiest happy hour, combining fitness, fun, and unbeatable team bonding for companies of every size. Runners and walkers of all levels are welcome. It all comes together at Energizer Park Thursday, May 7th in downtown St. Louis. An office party like no other. Create your company team today at stlbizdash.com.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
This portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly, heating, air conditioning, electrical, and plumbing.
From Troy, Missouri to Troy, Illinois. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I went to get gas and paid a lot of money for it today, but that's not the point of my story. You know how, Sue, downtown here, you can barely find an intersection downtown that doesn't have those like burnouts. in it. When the kids are doing their street takeover things.
Oh.
Like the rubber. You could see the circular.
Oh, yeah.
They call it burnouts, right?
Yeah.
So the rubber's being burnt and they're going in a circle. And I saw that at like the QT in Fenton. I'm like, my goodness, that's
It's everywhere.
Usually something I see downtown. But I bring it up because they had some big street takeovers in Queens over the weekend. Our friend Paul Mauro, Fox News contributor, the founder of the OpsNest.org, is back with us this afternoon. That looks like St. Louis, what I saw on the television. How are you, Paul?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so what happened with this is a significant issue here with street takeovers. Is that something that happens on a regular basis that got attention, or was it just bigger than most of them?
It's actually starting to get attention here. There's been a couple of them over the last couple of years. It seems to be something of a trend. There's a couple of problems with it. First of all, to get out ahead of them, you kind of have to on social media, because that's how a lot of the meetups happen. And that's a very resource-intensive thing. And furthermore, there are legal issues. As the police, you're essentially an arm of the government. And if it's a passport-protected site, you need legal process in order to get behind it. That's the general rule. I don't think a lot of that case law has been tested, but having done a lot of the terrorism stuff, I can tell you that's the general rule. So it's not hard for these kids to set this stuff up on social media or through protected email, text chains, et cetera. And so all of a sudden they're underway, the residents call, you get out there. The other problem is that the charges are not very heavy. Unless people have things like warrants or somebody decides to fight with you, really you're left with things like reckless endangerment. You could potentially go after whoever's driving the car to see if there are any outstanding tickets. Then you can confiscate the car. You can do sort of nuisance enforcement. But what it really comes down to is that you're limited legally by how much you can enforce here. The kids know that.
Yeah,
and
they
never
have
mind
to.
the fact that none of the stuff is bail eligible because they know they're not even gonna go to jail. Generally, they're gonna get summoned. So you don't really have much of a cudgel to stop it.
Well, that's interesting, and it makes sense to me. One of the additional, I guess I'd say, factors here in St. Louis, and this may be the case in the boroughs as well, but these kids, they know that the cops, they outnumber the cops like crazy. The cops really can't do anything anyway, so they know that there's not going to be any kind of consequences, and that's what makes it a little bit more sad because it's definitely out of control here. Look, we have a situation we just can't seem to add more cops, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, look, the atmosphere in our blue cities is undeniably anti-police. It's shifted very heavily that way. I thought we kind of bottomed out on that, but it doesn't look to be. And it's all, I think a lot of it is just, Trump and ICE and the inculcation that has gone on in our schools. But it's undeniable that, 20-somethings that in the past might have been drawn to police work these days just don't see it. Look, I can speak for myself. I mean, when I was coming up, I come from a police family. My old man was a cop here in New York City, transit cop. My grandfather was a cop back in Italy. He was a carabinieri, the national police. And, so it's sort of in the family, which is common in police work. But I can tell you, in my 20s, when I normally would have gravitated to it, the atmospherics here in New York City was so bad that I just said, I'm not going to do it because you're just a target. That started to change, and that's when I changed my mind. I also needed a job, frankly. But, so that happened. But that's the atmosphere now, and kids just don't want to go into it.
I understand that. All right. So how is your new mayor doing? Here he is talking about socialism and loving socialism.
Now that you've bumped up against the hard realities of a $5.4 billion budget shortfall and the other red tape that you have to go through, do you still believe in democratic socialism? Do you still think it can be effective?
I believe in it even more than I did the day before. And that's because of the fact that it is focused on the needs of working people. And working people need that focus, that fight from politicians more than ever.
So last week, of course, he talked about his grocery store idea.
Today, we make good on that promise. I am proud to announce that we will open every single one of these stores by the end of our first term. And the first one will open next year.
I heard the first one's not going to open until 2029. He's not backing down, Paul. How are the people in New York City dealing with all this?
There's an element of bemusement where people are sort of watching this in fascination and saying, like, wow, he really is going to do all of this stuff, huh? Well, let's see how it works out. But I think that there's starting to be a little flop sweat on the collective upper lip of the electorate here in New York City because they put him in. And they're starting to realize, like, okay, hold on a second. He's talking about $30 million, literally now, $30 million for the first of these grocery stores. And you're right, 2029 is actually when it's going to come online, which means probably never, because he'll outrun his term. And he won't get it unless he gets a second term, because these things never happen on time, as you and I both know. He is, I think, a genuinely dangerous person. He really has no sense of history. He's not a democratic socialist. That is the euphemism that they use these days for outright communism. And he knows how to portray that to his progressive left with terms like the warm embrace of collectivism, which is right from his inauguration. There's no missing that.
No.
So I think in his heart of hearts, I don't even think he would argue with you. And it is I have to say, as a resident of New York City, lifelong, it is a fascinating thing and somewhat of a horrific thing to watch us not only dive headfirst into the stuff that has never worked here, has never worked globally, but to actually watch the majority of the electorate buy into the losing side of the Cold War.
It's scary, right? I mean, you look at this, and I worry about this type of thing spreading. Look, we'll have a little bit of a test here on that in St. Louis this summer, Paul, because we have Cori Bush trying to get back into Congress against Wesley Bell, who beat her. But, we were talking this on Friday on my political roundtable. It's not out of the question that Cori Bush could win that just because it's a primary, and she still has a lot of that progressive support. So it's absolutely frightening. What did you think last week? We talked about this a little bit at the end of the week. You and I have talked about this case over the years, but the Go-Go Beach killer, Rex Sherman, pleaded guilty last week.
Yeah, so they got him on 7, and he admitted to an 8th. And look, they had him. The science is called. It was good DNA. They did. Look, I got to speak up a little bit for the Suffolk County Police Department. Now, full disclosure, I know the former head of the New York City Police Department, the highest uniform ranked chief of department, a guy named Ronnie Harrison, who went out to Suffolk, took over the chief of police job out there. He's the one who formed the task force with the district attorney, and they took a new look at that case after 10, 11 years, and they were able to bring it together. The original investigators took a lot of heat, because there was no new evidence. They just looked at it with fresh eyes and with no egos, and they put it together. And I know how they did it. They did good work. And so a lot of that criticism is justified. But one thing is forgotten about here. In the original case, the Suffolk County PD went out there. Their crime scene people in a really hostile area. I know the terrain out there. It's very remote in this very heavily forested area out by the beach. It was very windswept. And they managed to isolate this DNA that ultimately sunk him. And that crime scene team originally, back in whatever it was, 2010, managed to preserve the DNA that sunk him here, because I think that was really the linchpin of it. The rest of it was kind of circumstantial. I think they would have got him anyway. But when the DNA started coming back and his team started to see that, that's when you knew that there's a very good chance of a plea deal. So hats off to the original crime scene team. I can't say the same for the detective team. That was a failure of leadership, not a failure of the detectives. That's a whole other story. But then hats off to this new team that looked at it, put it together through the phone work and through the new interviews. And look, a genuine serial killer who likely would have acted again. One thing about these guys, they don't grow out of this stuff. And so you probably saved lives with this case.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a couple of documentaries. I think the one that I really liked was the one that was on Netflix called Gone Girls, that was out about a year ago. And, a lot of people had trouble, Paul, just one more note on this, believing that his wife, didn't know something about it. But when they track and they cross-check all the travel, all of this happened when she was out of town.
Yeah, I looked at this too, and I agree. I don't think the wife was implicated in any way, shape, or form. He was a very domineering figure, and I think half the reason she would take these trips that she took was to get away from him. I'm going to tell you something, though, that has not been explored. As somebody who was pretty involved in this, watching this, I'm in a couple of the documentaries, at least that Fox did. But, this initially happened back in 2020. There was a big confrontation between Suffolk County PD and the FBI, and the Suffolk County chief out there, a guy named Burke, was knocking heads with the FBI. And as a result, the FBI always blamed him, said they could have solved it, they didn't solve it, et cetera, et cetera. Here's my question to you and to your audience. Why didn't the FBI just take the case? They could have asserted jurisdiction. These girls came across state lines in many instances. There was absolutely nothing. In fact, the phone work that they used to put the case together this time around, the second time that sunk him, was based upon FBI downloads from the cell towers. I'll never understand why the FBI did not originally take the case, if they were so hot on it, and take it away from Suffolk PD, which they had every jurisdictional right to do, and then solve it themselves and do everything that was done this time around. And my answer there is that they probably back then, the phones weren't as sophisticated, et cetera. They didn't think they'd get there. And so they didn't want to take on a loser.
Yeah,
and
that's
I think
interesting.
That politically here, you got to say to yourself, the Suffolk County PD took a lot of hits on that originally from the FBI. And ultimately, they arrested this guy, Burke, because they really had him targeted because he wouldn't cooperate with them. They had it coming. Turns out to be he was a bad guy. But that said, I find it interesting that the FBI never dived in on that because serial killers are supposed to be their bailiwick. And they stayed away from this one, and ultimately they had nothing to do with this solve.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Paul Mauro with us this afternoon. Just quickly before we wrap up, your thoughts on where we are with Iran right now. I spent a little bit of the first part of the show talking about the 60 Minutes story on the enriched uranium last night that I actually found very interesting. But, the timetable here that the administration set up is certainly getting expanded right now. It's hard to know whether we're negotiating with the right people. Apparently, there's more talks on the table for this week, but Trump's also making more threats right now, Paul, if they don't come to some agreement.
Yeah, 8 o'clock deadline tomorrow. Look, the mullahs are out of the picture. That was one of the things they wanted to do. So, mission accomplished as far as that goes. But now you're down to the hardliners in the IRGC. What really has to happen here is that they have to isolate the IRGC so much that the Artesh, the traditional Iranian military, rises up and throws them out. And that's the tipping point. History has shown that that's what happened originally with the Shah. And that's what I think that they're hoping for here. And then lastly, relative to Iran, I just want to make this point. This case out of L.A. where you saw this woman who was advocating for them. I had a number of those cases here in New York where similar things were going on during the during the Obama administration when I was still working. And I couldn't get anybody interested. This is not an uncommon case. It's getting a lot of attention right now. And I look at it and say, so what? Big deal. I probably had 5 or 6 of these and could have had 10 more if anybody had been interested. Nobody cared, because we were coddling Iran at the time. And when you coddle fanatics like that, ultimately all you're doing is kicking it downrange, and we have what we have now. All I can say to sum it up is that, look, you can disagree with us going into Iran, you can agree, whatever. But now that we're there's one thing left to do, and that's to win it. And from where I sit, you don't win it if the IRGC remains. You got to get rid of those guys. You got to open up the straits. UAE, the Gulf, and the Israelis got to make common cause. Otherwise, I don't know that this was a win.
Yeah, well stated, and I agree with all of that, Paul Mauro. By the way, you're not a New York Mets fan, I hope, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I blame Mamdani.
Dude,
Listen,
11,
I was just in Italy.
11 losses in a row, right?
The fountain. I threw a coin into the Trevi fountain over my shoulder. You're supposed to wish to come back to Rome. I wish for the Mets to win a game. Shows you how much luck I got. So,
oh, my. Yeah, they're having some troubles right now. I'm sorry about that. I was hoping you were going to say Yankees.
The Rangers, the Mets, the New York's is just a terrible sports town. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Well,
and I hate the Yankees,
Well, we can agree on that one. All right. Paul, thank you. I agree with you on that. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, if you're just headed out, not a bad commute at this hour, unless you're headed into Illinois. We've got road work in the left lanes coming up off of the Poplar Street Bridge, and it really has caused a jam. In fact, it's back on the Missouri side to Jefferson, and that's just put extra volume on the other bridges, especially the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. There was a stall eastbound 44, too, before 55. That one, at least, they've moved off to the shoulder. And now some moderate volume on southbound 270, just headed for Ladue Road. It's not that bad. 70 westbound a little slow at K, and 40 a little slow Highway N out through the 70 split. But in general, it's not too bad unless you're headed into Illinois. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
So, in case I didn't flush that out enough when I asked Paul that question, the Mets have lost 11 games in a row. It's their worst losing streak since 2004. They have not lost 12 in a row since 2002. And their 7-15 start ties for the third worst in franchise history with the 1983 season. Only 5-17 starts in 16 in 1962 and then also 1964, the lovable loser years of the Mets were worse. So that's a rough start. You think we have it bad here? I mean, that's a team that had expectations, and they've lost 11 in a row.
Hey, it's Annie. Grab your clubs and head to Tamarack Golf Course on Friday, May 22nd for the St. Clair County Republicans annual golf tournament. Shotgun start, 18 holes, carts, contest, lunch, and great prizes. Learn more at 971talk.com/events.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. A question I get all the time is, how did we become the largest injury firm in the world? We have over 1,000 lawyers in all 50 states and close to 6,000 coworkers. Our call center is on duty 24/7. You can reach us at any time at forthepeople.com. But the real reason is we won a lot. When you visit our website, go to our verdicts and settlements. There you will see what our clients were offered and what they were awarded at trial. All those verdicts help us resolve many cases fairly and early. You see, nothing beats reputation. The insurance industry knows who we are. We even have insurance adjusters call us for representation because they know too. We've made it easy. On your mobile device or computer, go to forthepeople.com and we will get busy. It's that easy. Call today. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Dial pound law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Don't let tax refund worries hold you back. File now with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
You're listening to The Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I know you are a cyclist, not a runner. Did you ever do serious running?
Yeah, I've run several. I don't
like
know
half marathons.
I'm just a half marathon
Yeah.
person, probably 20 or so.
Well, that's nothing wrong with that. But I have a friend who, these are my friends in mid-Missouri. They own Fleet Feet stores. You know,
Oh, those are
shoe stores.
great.
Yeah, and they, Nancy Yeager is her name. Carlin is my friend. Well, they're both my friends. Anyway, she's done God knows how many.
Real marathons.
Like marathons.
Yeah.
But because of the store and because they do work with New Balance, I think it is, she got an invite for, and it's coming up this weekend, the London Marathon.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So I think they're leaving tomorrow for
okay.
London.
Oh, go.
And they've never been, and I'm like, it's a great city. It's very safe to get around in, so
This
that was
is
cool.
exciting.
Yeah, but so listen to this, though, because and this will tie in with maybe we'll I sent this to George Rosenthal from ThrottleNet.
The robot?
Singapore, yeah.
Yeah.
A year ago in Beijing's humanoid robot half marathon race, the first runner to cross the line took more than 2.5 hours. In this year's event, the champion beat the fastest human ever. So this was a race that demonstrated China's rapid progress in humanoid robotics. I guess that...
Wait, are you saying humanoid?
Humanoid.
Instead of,
No, I said it the wrong way.
Okay,
Humanoid,
just
sorry.
checking.
But they, I guess, the guy who runs NVIDIA and Elon Musk say this is the next biggest thing, right? Beijing sees robotics as one of the top industries to drive its economy. The winner was a humanoid called Lightning, developed by a Chinese smartphone maker, Honor. Still, it was not a perfect race, so about 220 yards from the finish line, Lightning, who is 5'5", slammed into a barricade and collapsed.
Oopsie.
The red and black robot managed to get back on its feet with help from humans and ran across the finish line in 50 minutes and 26 seconds.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, my God. Last month, the human world record holder, Jacob Kiplimo from Uganda, finished the race in, this is a 13-mile race, but still 57 minutes and 20 seconds. So that's why this was a better time by like 30 seconds.
Uh-huh.
Lightning, and apparently Lightning has 2 siblings. Did you know? Swept the podium. All 3 navigated the course without human control, excluding the help that the champion got, which, by the way, I would say that's pretty significant help, right?
Well, yeah, we could have left him.
Yeah, if he's sitting there with no help, he doesn't win the record, right?
Nope.
The race penalized the completion times of those relying on constant human remote control, including one that finished the race in under 50 minutes. So I guess that they had some, other
They got standards.
they had robots,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they had to say no.
Did you see any of it? It's slightly creepy.
Saw a little bit of it. I guess it's a course that includes more complex terrain than last year. There's slopes, there's sharp turns. They were trying to test the robot's ability to handle, like an extreme stress test, things that were hard. And I guess it's China that is moving quickly to dominate the humanoid robotics industry. You might remember last week, and we could talk about this, when I sent this to George Rosenthal, there was and this was let's see where this was. I showed you this with the feral hogs, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
This was in Poland where some wild boars, and again, I have to accept that this is real, but nobody has flagged it as not real. But in Poland, there were wild boars that snuck into a neighborhood. They were chased off by a robot. I mean, basically looked like the same robot that Lightning was running the marathon.
So that's what they're good for, right? Stuff like that?
I don't know. I think they're going to be good for a lot more
Yeah.
than that, but I thought that was interesting. I watched a documentary over the weekend that I can't not really recommend, but I did want to cover it real quick because, Sue, I think you might know the story of this. There was she was an amazing athlete, female cyclist by the name of Mariah Wilson. And she, it's funny because she really had picked up very early these skills to be a bike racer in many, many different types of bike racing, not only road racing. She was a gravel bike racer, a mountain biker, and she was really at the top of her game and really peaking in her career. Well, she had this guy that she was kind of on and off again down in Austin, Texas. And, I mean, you could watch the documentary if you want, but something very tragic happens to Mariah when she goes down to Austin, and the movie is called The Truth and Tragedy of Mariah Wilson, and it started on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. It's directed by Marina Zenovich, and she directed, and I thought this was pretty good, the Chevy Chase and You're Not documentary.
Yeah.
She put Chevy, kind of on the defensive. It was a fascinating, documentary because Chevy was not comfortable, and you kind of see why he's so weird and sometimes unlikable. She also did the Lance Armstrong documentary.
Oh, that
out.
was
And
really good.
It's produced by Evan Hayes, who did Free Solo, and I know that you saw Free Solo, didn't you? But this one just doesn't really get there, unfortunately. It's like a 90-minute doc that really probably would have been wrapped up in 45 minutes. I kept hoping and wanting something else to happen, and I knew. Do you remember that case at all? Do you remember what happened?
No.
So she was murdered, and it became a mystery as far as was it the love interest? Was it somebody else? Who did it? Because she's at the top of her game, and then all of a sudden she's found murdered at a friend's home in Austin, Texas, that she had just started, a visit and was looking forward to, do more bike racing, et cetera. It's a sad, sad story. I wish the doc was just a little better, unfortunately. But for those people interested in the story, I kind of saw it just because I knew her name and I knew a little bit about it, so I pressed go on that over the weekend. We'll come back. Here we get Sue's News. I do have a couple things I want to touch on in the beginning of the 4 o'clock hour. Well, also, this is crazy. So at 4:30, my friend Chris Smith, I saw him a week ago when Jimmy Fallon came into town. He has kind of a crazy delivery story to tell. Chris is the one who was shot in the head. They featured him on 48 Hours. We've told his story many times, but he has a crazy FedEx delivery story that we're going to share. So that's coming up at 4:30.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
If you are westbound or will be on 70 out of downtown, it's fine. There was a little bit of moderate volume out at K. 64, that's a slow go, but it's mainly Kings Highway out through McCausland, a little bit of 270 and Highway N in pockets through 70. But we have a parking lot jam if you're headed into Illinois on 64, which is jammed from Jefferson to road work in the left lanes coming off about the Illinois side of the bridge to Barack Obama Boulevard, and that has created a jam on 55 and extra traffic on the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge as drivers use that as an alternate. This report is brought to you by Barron Mirror Glass and Door. They have the largest, most beautiful showroom in all of St. Louis. It's full of the latest, most custom designs. It's in Chesterfield Valley, and there you'll see why they say creativity unlimited, quality unsurpassed. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I want to talk about Susan L. Ward, who is a family practice attorney here in the St. Louis area. But it's funny, I found this article in the New York Times today, and it was 5 unexpected things that people went to war for in their divorce. And Susan will share stories like this. I've heard some before. And this one's just crazy. So there was a dude that was very insistent that he get his Walgreens rewards from his ex-wife. The ex-wife said, let him have it. I just use CVS now. But apparently, and the guy doesn't even remember wanting this. This is what happens to you when you're divorced. Kind of your mind goes, blurry. He said that he just wanted to win, and even though it wasn't very much, he didn't want her to have it. So these things happen in divorce. That's why you need someone like Susan on your side. She has a great team in De Pere at Manchester and 270. She's got a ton of experience, and she's got a website that can guide you into anything you really need to know. There's even some blog posts up there. Contact the firm if you need her. 314-783-9400, the website, stlfamilylaw.com. The focus on family law and the emphasis on you. Susan L. Ward.
Did you know replacing old vinyl windows with more vinyl windows might not be the best choice? Hi, it's Kim, and I'm here to tell you about Infinity from Marvin Windows, because these fiberglass windows, they're energy efficient, they're beautiful, and they're custom built to fit your home perfectly. The team at Lakeside Renovation and Design just makes the process so easy. I love the fact that they even offer a lifetime workmanship warranty. Look, if you're tired of drafts, high energy bills, or maybe hard to open windows, now's the time to upgrade. Visit windowsbylakeside.com to schedule your free consultation today.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-390-1164. 800-390-1164. 800-390-1164.
You've been listening to the very popular Wellness One for many years, Saturdays and Sundays on 97.1 FM Talk. We're happy to share that we've expanded the show to 4 times a week. Yes, 4 times every weekend. Saturday at 10 a.m., Saturday at 8 p.m., Sunday at 9 a.m., and Sunday at 2 p.m. It's the same great show designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you a common sense, science-based strategy for a healthy life. So join TJ and Aaron for Wellness One. Now 4 times a week on 97.1 FM Talk.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
On energy prices. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. President Trump just signing a follow-up to an executive order from January that declared a national energy emergency. Now he's invoking the Defense Production Act to boost domestic petroleum production and to expand coal power generation and liquefied natural gas transmission. This as a tug of war with Iran continues over the Strait of Hormuz, with a second round of peace talks in Pakistan in doubt.
We don't have a confirmed date or time for these talks here in Islamabad. And on the ground here, security is tightening for the anticipated second round of peace talks between the U.S. and Iran. A red zone perimeter has been formed around the area where the negotiations are expected to take place.
Fox's Matt Finn, Vice President Vance leading a U.S. delegation again. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Last week, Senate Republicans had their 4th opportunity to support our War Powers resolution. And for the 4th time, Senate Republicans acquiesced to Donald Trump and gave this historic blunder their stamp of approval.
The Democrats argue the Iran conflict is driving up the cost of living in the U.S. An accused Iranian arms dealer has a court date in California.
The criminal complaint accuses her of brokering the sale of, quote, armed unmanned aerial vehicles, bombs, bomb fuses, assault weapons, and millions of rounds of ammunition. Officials say just one of those contracts was, quote, valued at over 60 million euros, that's about $70 million, for the sale of Iranian-made Mohajer 6 armed UAVs from Iran's Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics to the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Sudan.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt in L.A., where prosecutors say the suspect, Shameen Mafi, was living a lavish lifestyle, arrested over the weekend before a flight to Turkey, where officials say she had immigrated before coming to the U.S., getting a green card in 2016. America is listening to Fox News.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion, and when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids. Rolaids' dual-active formula has calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. Yeah, you heard right. 2 actives for that powerful relief. And the best part? The roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get back to moving mountains.
Rolade spells powerful relief. Read each label. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Temperatures were a touch warmer this afternoon. The southerly flow really takes hold Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Clear skies, right around 60 this evening, 52 for the low. Tuesday, sunny, warmer in the afternoon, breezy from the south, 80 degrees. Tuesday night, clear skies, 58. Wednesday, sunny and 81. Thursday, sunny, 83. Unsettled weather late Thursday night, Friday and Friday night. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
I hated when I found something this morning that I really liked from the New York Times, actually, and now I can't find it, unfortunately. And it was one of those things that I swear to God I put in my reading list, but I'm going to have to look for it a little deeper because it was a fun little fashion quiz. And I don't know. I know, and it would be really good, I think, with Fred and with Ethan and you and I. Maybe something I saved for when Alex is here on Wednesday, but let me just see if I can find this.
Fashion quiz on which was New York Times?
I think it was on the New York Times, but I put these things in my reading list and I cannot find it. So that means that I did something wrong when I was looking for that. On Friday, I mentioned that I was rear-ended, and it wasn't a big serious thing or anything like that. I mean, the guy basically just tapped me. I was at a light at Hawkins and 141, and I had some, after I was off the air that day, I had some exchange with, the person who hit me, and that they filed the claim with Progressive. So on Saturday, I didn't take time to do this on Friday night, but on Saturday, and I don't know how long it's been. Have you guys filed a claim for any of your vehicles recently?
No. Not recently.
So it's been 2.5 years since I filed a claim. And gosh, I can't remember the last time usually it's our fault, not the other person. But it was very, very streamlined. And it basically, there were a bunch of questions that you had to ask. And
is this on the website?
Yeah, it's on a website. So they send you a link, and you go through and you answer the basic questions of what happened during the accident. Then at one point, you're given a map, and they show you the overhead, the Google view of the intersection.
Holy cow!
And they say, mark the area as close. You can even, I think, move the vehicles around. Move it to where you think the accident took place.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I went outside, and I did this with the iPad. They basically have you take about 6 pictures of your entire car. So you're doing a 3D. And when you open up the camera for it, it actually is just not your camera. They want you to fit it into the mold of the vehicle. And it was my vehicle, so it wasn't like just any vehicle. So then you kind of fit it in there as best as you can. It's kind of like if you deposit a check, from your phone or your iPad or something like that. You got to squeeze it into that little square area. So then I took all the pictures, took the pictures of the damage, did everything else. There was a couple of questions, like they wanted me to upload my license. I'm like, okay, I'll do that later. I didn't want to deal with it, and if they asked me for it, I'll do it. But for the most part, it was a simple process.
That's
answering a bunch of questions. Now, I have not heard from them. The next step would hopefully be for them to say, hey, this is what we want you to do to get it fixed and use these body shops. So I've had no communication from them since Saturday.
What would you rather do? Do it like that or actually talk to a
I think this was preferred, really. It was so easy. Because even if I had a real person, they're still going to make me take the pictures and stuff like that, right?
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah, I guess so that eliminates having to send somebody out or you taking it in. Like, I've had to take it in before and have them
I think I'm still
Yeah.
going to have to do that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to get an estimate, but I want to make sure what I told the people that I'm dealing with is I don't want to go to a bunch of, body shops and then all of a sudden Progressive say, well, we don't want that one. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because it was so easy. And then, of course, they ask you, were you or anyone else intoxicated at the time? I'm like, who is going to answer that question,
Why,
even if they were?
yes.
Right? Why, yes, I was.
Yes.
I had 5 shots of tequila right before I was heading into work at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
So I did my best. We'll see what happens with that. But it was kind of an interesting process. So I played a little pickleball on Saturday with the Rainfords again, Jeff and Janet. They're really good, and we had a lot of fun. But yesterday,
Yet you went back.
But you know what's funny though? The previous week. And Becky will tell you this. Like this is sad, but it's just the way it is. I'm so competitive that if I lose, I'm in a crappy mood, right?
Oh, boy.
So last weekend when we played, I didn't win one damn game, so I was in a crappy mood. This week, I don't think I lost a game.
Oh.
Mainly because Brooke Cusumano, Frank's daughter, was my teammate for a couple of the matches, and she's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I was excited about that. But we had a great time. We were at Padel and Pickle, which is that club that's over in Olivet. But then yesterday I had a racquetball match that was with someone in the league. Now it's funny because you guys know how much I love beating up on these kids that are like 25 or
Right.
32. I've beaten a couple of these kids, and I'm 61 years old
Yeah.
now. But there's a doctor who I play with in the league. His name is Adrian, and we've played together for the last 2.5 years. He's never beaten me. And
Is this the
he's-
C group?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Do you really have to highlight that, though?
Well,
did you really have to do that to me?
The only
Could you not
reason-
have said, like, Mark, now everybody knows I'm in the C group. I don't like to talk about the C group. There's the A and the B group is ahead of the C group.
Yeah, but
right.
how many letters are there? It could go all the way to Z.
No.
That's a good point,
It
Fred.
only
Thanks
goes
for
to C.
defending me.
Thank you, Sue.
Yes.
But now this is my effort to move up the ladder, right?
Okay.
But
Well,
anyway,
that was my point.
yeah.
I mean, are you working your way to the B group?
I have
then?
no idea. But what I do know is that Saturday I told Becky, I'm like, all I have on the schedule tomorrow is I'm playing racquetball at 9 a.m. And I said, I'll probably be home like by 10:15 because I usually smoke this guy, right? That was a bad answer,
Oh.
right? So I get there yesterday, and I didn't lose, but he had me. You play to 15, and then you play the third game to 11. He had me, I think, in the first game 9-2. I was like, I was huffing up. I'm like, I finally had to say to myself, this is not happening. I am not losing this game. There is not a chance that I'm losing this game. I cannot. So then I won, right?
Okay.
So then
All right.
in the second game, I think at one point I had him at 14-4.
Mm-hmm.
So the brain, what the brain
Jeez.
does to you, right? I'm smoking right.
Yeah.
So the brain tells you,
You're fine.
I just need one more point.
Yeah.
Right now, you only get a point when you serve. Well, gosh darn if you didn't come back. It was like I think it was 15-12 was the final.
Wow.
So I almost lost. So I got run around, and that was a little jarring because usually I can handle that match a little bit better.
That's good.
But
He's getting better. It's more of a competition.
that's true.
Yeah.
But then that left me in a good mood yesterday.
Oh.
Because I won. All of my moods in all things at home, usually on the weekends, it's just pretty much dependent on winning or losing.
You're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the doctor you were playing?
Yes.
When you got out of breath, did you get kind of worried? Like, what's he going to think? I'm out of breath.
No, because he was out of breath. Look, he took 2 timeouts.
Good question.
He says to me, he goes, hey, when I watch like the good guys, they take like a minute time. I'm like, I'm good with that, bro. Let's take 2 or 3 minutes because we were both like I was dying. And if it went to a third game, I don't know if I would have made it. Pickleball's fun and everything, but you're not quite doing the aerobic activity that you
doubles
would
if you're playing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Although we built up a pretty good sweat over the weekend doing that as well.
I love it.
What else was I going to tell you about here from the weekend? Oh, okay. I do want to talk about this because we're going to talk about sports, and I didn't pull any audio examples of this. But Fred, you said you didn't see it, so I'm watching the game yesterday. I watch a lot of baseball this weekend because it's fun to watch when the Cardinals are winning. And there's a new reporter anchor on the, what do we call this now? Is it FanDuel anymore? Or I don't even know what we call
I think
it.
it's Cardinals TV.
Cardinals TV. Okay.
Oh.
So her name is Danny Wexelman. Have you seen her before? She's a brunette. She's new. There was this Alexa Datt had the gig in the last few years. And
She's with the Nationals now. She went to
Alexa
Washington.
Datt is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be too mean to her, but man, it seems like we got a serious upgrade in the quality of reporting. And I like what I'm seeing from Danny Wexelman. But here's
good.
what was interesting.
Good.
And Fred, I think you would like this too, and Sue too. And maybe they're going to do more of this. So I'm going to say something very positive about the coverage that I saw. And for those people watching the game, I think you might agree with me. She did this thing before the game. So, Fred, it wasn't during the game. And she went out with John Jay, who I think is the outfield coach for the Cardinals, former Cardinal. And they were in Houston, all right? And Houston's got a very unique field. All fields have different dimensions and different aspects of the walls and all that stuff. So she starts in left field with, I don't even know where she started, it doesn't matter, with John Jay. And they're talking about the particulars of where the ball can hit, where it could maybe ping off that wall a little differently. And they basically go around the stadium and they do this walkthrough where she's asking what I thought were really good questions, and John Jay is answering the questions about what batters have to think about and what fielders have to think about. Really, it's what fielders had to think about when they're playing things off the corners and the walls and stuff like that. Here's the problem. And again, I was into the segment, but it was about a 3-minute segment, if I had to guess. It's the type of thing that if you watch the NFL on Sunday mornings, they package up and they put it in their pregame coverage, right? But there's not a big pregame for the Cardinals anymore, and what happens is they did a split screen. So the game was actually going on. The report was airing. Nobody was saying anything. Brad Thompson and Chip were not saying anything during this, okay? So you could see the game, and quite candidly, the timing of this couldn't have been better because as soon as they exited the story that Danny was doing, something significant happened in the game. Like there was a deep fly ball or something. So it timed out well.
So they put it in the game.
Oh, yeah. Like, so you're literally watching the piece.
Whoa, what?
You're not hearing any of the play-by-play. You can watch the game. So my only criticism was, man, I love this, but that's a lot of, if things were actually happening in the game, so, okay, you can reverse it. Nothing was happening. Okay, so it worked because nothing was happening. But, yes, if you do this and all of a sudden there's action, I don't know what they would have done.
Yeah, that's not.
But I like that they're trying something different, though.
Yeah. How much you don't get much pre or post game? That's a great pre-game thing to do.
But I think it's only like a 15-minute pregame right now. And who watches the pregame? I'll be honest with you. I watch NFL pregame. I really do. I don't watch Major League Baseball pregame that often.
Maybe a seventh inning stretch or something.
I don't know. All I know is overall I'm ranking what I saw as positive because it was interesting to me and it was different and it gives you look. I think that they need to do more of this even when it comes to the analytics and something like that. Alexa, this is funny. I never told you this. Okay, we're in the outfield when she sang the national anthem and she sees something underneath the scoreboard and it says MVL.
MVL.
Yeah, I think it was MVL. Do you know what that is?
No.
I didn't either. Mound visits left. And they indicate that, right? My point is, there's a lot of things with these analytics and stuff
that you don't know
that they talk about. And even people like you and I, Fred, who are big baseball fans, it's probably a little over our heads, right? So I'm not asking them to dumb down the coverage, but I think explainers and things like this, the fans would find interesting.
Agreed.
I think Major League Baseball has done a terrible job when it comes to miking up guys and giving fans an opportunity to know players the way that the other leagues have. Anyway, we'll have Scotty Warmann on a little bit later. He might have something to say about this, but I like the segment overall.
And my one John Jay story was a couple years ago, he was here in the studios, and he had maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to kill before his interview. He came back into my studio, and he asked me more questions about my job than
isn't that cool?
Any other intern or new employee ever asked. He was seriously concerned about what I did
Wow,
and how
that's
I did
fascinating.
it. Yeah, so he was just a really nice guy.
I like to hear that. But anyway, I like the segment. One question I would have is, and maybe this is up there somewhere, but a segment like that should be up on the website somewhere.
Yes,
it
should.
For people who didn't see it yet.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Very interesting. Okay, on the roads, a huge jam headed for the Poplar Street Bridge, all due to road work through Wednesday at 4. The left lanes are blocked on the Illinois side. And it's a jam on the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge as well. And 64 eastbound is slowing at 255 due to road work. Now, on the Missouri side, it's the usual. Westbound 70 really isn't that bad as you head toward the 70-64 split. 64 is lined up approaching Hampton out through McCausland, and then some slow pockets past Winghaven. out through the 70 split. 55, they've opened a lane or two, and it's not as bad right now as you head southbound out of downtown. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
Honey, I found the one.
Oh, I thought I was the one.
Oh, you are, but this one's certified, background check, shows up on time, and can install all the ceiling fans.
Heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Trusted pros who do it right.
Okay, Ethan, all on top of this. So Danny Wexelman does post those on her Twitter site. So I'm going to retweet that out because it says Space City. Sorry, a little coughing spell there. Space City with Houston, with the most unique outfield in the sport. World Series champion outfield coach John Jay was gracious enough to share why. Hear our full convo on Cardinals TV, and I think that's what she posted. So anyway, I'll retweet that in a second. Have you checked out the bagel loan from Stewart's American Mortgage? Look, I saw Stewie last week, and he'll tell you that rates have been going a little up, a little down. Right now, there's a bit of a lull with what's happening in Iran. If things heat up again there, then those rates are going to go up. But you might want to take advantage right now. Ask him about the bagel loan. You won't have to sit on customer service line for hours. You're going to get right to Stewart or Jordan, his son. They handle everything. And the big difference is with Stewart's American Mortgage, you pay less. You keep more of your money. That's the entire goal. When you refi, it's a great time to do that. Again, you might find a sweet spot here, especially you're going to say, look, the rates are too high. Well, if you pay no appraisal fees, no closing costs, no title fees, no broker fees, zero, you're going to save money. And that's the whole goal. He's been doing this for many decades. You can close quickly, too, as little as 10 days, and there's a lot of transparency. So Google the bagel loan or just text him at 314-324-4440. Stewart's American Mortgage, NMLS number 226715.
Mark Cox here. Join me, Annie Fry, and Mark Reardon, along with Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw of the Retirement Advisory Group, as they show you how to create a worry-free retirement. It's Tuesday, April 28th at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield at 6:30. Here are Thomas and Bob with more.
Are you nearing retirement or already retired and would like to know how to turn your 401k and IRA into a worry-free retirement? Would you like to learn the investment strategy that gives you market growth while avoiding the market losses at the same time?
Would you like to get your free personalized retirement income plan? Did you also know if you're 59 and a half or older, you can roll over your company retirement plan tax-free and have a worry-free retirement? If you're 59 and a half or older, you cannot afford to miss this event.
Have a worry-free retirement and join the official financial advisors of my show, Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw. It's at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield, Tuesday, April 28th at 6:30 p.m. Go to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
Have you ever felt like you were living just a B or B plus life? It's so dangerous to live that, more dangerous than a B minus or a C plus life, because when you're living a B or B plus life, you don't change it. You think it's good enough. Is it? I'm Susie Welch. I host a podcast called Becoming You. People think, okay, an A plus life is not available to me, but there is a way. We are all in the process of becoming ourselves. Listen to Becoming You wherever you get your podcast.
The Mark Reardon Show, 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
All right, just kind of a story that came at us a little bit later this afternoon. My friend Chris Smith reached out and said, you will not believe this delivery story that I have. So he's out on his tractor trying to plant some pumpkins, I think, or get ready for that. But he's going to share his story in just a little bit. Frank Cusumano, right around 4:45. A great weekend for the Cardinals. They're in action tonight. I think, Fred, it's Miami.
Right.
So not an off Monday, but the Cardinals looking real good here in the last, is it a 6-game winning streak, a 5-game winning streak? It's a good winning streak.
Yeah,
that's what we know. Absolutely. All right, let's do this on a Monday afternoon.
These allegations are deeply concerning.
Does the president have any comment?
We're not going to comment.
It's not clear messaging.
No.
And now, Sue's News. Brought to you by Sue.
It's National Lima Bean Day. I love a lima bean. Fred, you're out.
Oh, my goodness, no.
What? If you
No.
cook them properly and do it with some corn,
I've never
it's
really
so
had
good.
them properly
If you ask me to rank
They
the
seem
worst,
too waxy.
yeah. If you ask me to rank the worst vegetables, lima beans would be up there one or two.
Seriously, worse than broccoli, which smells
Yes.
like feet when you cook it?
Well, when you cook it, perhaps,
Well,
but not when
yeah.
you eat it. And I'm not going to disagree with that, too. It's weird that way.
It
but
is
like,
weird that
lima, I've
way.
never had a lima bean that I've liked.
Oh.
Now, like, I used to hate Brussels sprouts because I was forced to eat them when I was a kid. But
they're
Love
good.
them. Love
you
them
gotta
now.
roast them.
Of course.
Right, like there's
and
a
I do.
key. You can't boil them. See, this is, I think our mothers were working off some outdated information. That's when I got broccoli that was overboiled and had like cheese sauce.
You know what I would have to do? Like, because I was forced
Three more
to
bites.
eat my vegetables, I
Yeah.
would like, I try to eat the whole thing and just
Hold your
pour milk
nose.
down. Like,
Yeah, we did that too, Jeff and I.
I was a master at sneaking it under the table to the dog.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I
ours
did.
caught on to that.
We had really healthy dogs because they got all my vegetables.
But seriously, like, how could you cook a lima bean where it's
so-
good?
Oh, I can do that for you.
What would you do with it?
Well, you can boil if you get the baby ones that are frozen. They're not too big and dry.
Yeah.
Get the baby frozen ones, boil it in there, put a little bit of butter, a lot of butter.
Okay, a lot of butter.
and some corn, and then put garlic salt on there, and maybe some other seasoned salt.
All right.
You like it.
Bacon? I'd eat it if there was
Well,
bacon
I'd
with
put
it.
bacon in it
All
if
right,
you want.
good.
I don't even like this. It's National Pineapple Upside Down Cake. It's not that great to me.
It's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a National Look-alike Day. Do you have someone that looks like you, Mark Reardon?
I'm not going to lay claim to this, however.
Yes. Uh-oh.
This doesn't happen anymore because I guess I look too old. But I would get, back in the day, and I got this in Hollywood, believe it or not, Christian Bale.
Oh, I can kind of see that.
There were actually there was something that happened when I was in Vegas for the Hangover, I think, junket at the time, and these two guys, it was probably a Gap store, Banana Republic. They literally started calling me Batman.
Oh,
I'm
my
like, guys,
gosh,
I'm
that's
not
awesome.
Batman. I promise you. Look, I'll show you with my shirt off.
Oh my
okay?
gosh. You're right. You would be the thin Christian Bale.
I would be the out of shape one too.
Well, and what about you, Fred? Wait, you said
no.
Who was it?
Oh, I don't know.
Remember, he went on the date, and
Yeah.
they told him you looked like, who was it?
But that just came up. You got to say who that was.
Lionel Richie.
Okay.
Yes, I love that.
But
I love it
think
so
a,
much.
A bigger comparison is there's some character in The Simpsons, and I can't think who it is.
Flanders?
Might be.
Oh,
you?
I love that.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
before.
Well, it might be based on you who you are as
Oh,
well.
okay.
You know, Flanders. Flanders is great.
Well, thank
But he's the neighbor. Doodly-doo. You know that. I think he passed away, Fred, but we'll ignore that.
He didn't have vegetable. He didn't eat lima beans.
That's right. On this day in
What about
his-
you?
Oh, I don't know that I'm confused for anyone.
Okay.
I only one time got a Sandra Bullock from back, and it would have been a long time ago.
All right, that's all right.
Yes.
Oh, believe me, mine have
Yes,
faded.
mine-
Any kind of
way
lookalikes
faded.
now. It's,
Yes.
You look elderly. That's what I get most often.
You do not. On this day in history, 114 years ago, in 1912, Fenway Park was opened in Boston. It is 114 years old. I've been to one game there. You guys gone?
No.
It's so fun.
I didn't like it. I'm like the outlier. They
Really?
were the most uncomfortable seats in any baseball stadium I've ever sat in my life.
I guess
Now,
I was
I
in the
loved
bleachers.
everything around the stadium,
Yes.
the history, all
Yes.
of that. I love that. I love it. But the seats that I had, they were behind home plate, up, but behind, it was just not comfortable.
Wow, I was cheap and in the bleachers, and they were just like any other bleachers, so I was happy. And on this day in history, 18 years ago, it was 2008, when Danica Patrick became the first female to win an IndyCar race when she won the Indy Japan 300. I had forgotten about that. Oh, okay, just a little bit of Hollywood news. Eddie Murphy received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Film Institute, and Mike Myers showed up in full Shrek makeup to honor him. They're going to air that thing on Netflix on May 31st, if you have any
I love
interest.
that.
And Mario and Ryan Gosling topped the box office again this weekend. The Mummy opened in third.
How much money has Project Hail Mary made?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I
Okay.
did not look that up.
Because I'm not so sure they might not be approaching $1 billion.
They
on
have
that
to be.
one.
But as you say, it's the best thing going right now in the theaters.
Let's see. Box
All right, go
office.
ahead.
Okay, let's see here.
All right.
Project Hail Mary, AI's thinking.
Okay.
Over 573 million worldwide as of April 19th.
573.
285 domestic. That's a big number no
Yeah,
matter what. Okay,
it
so
is.
it's not quite at the billion, but it's approaching certainly 600 million, and that's an incredible number. It really is.
It is. There's a 28-year-old man in California, Jarrell Augustine, who was arrested for stealing valuable Lego figurines from sets. Mark was going to do this story, but I got to do it first, I guess. Here's what he would do. After he removed the Legos, he'd replace the pieces with bags of dried pasta so they would sound the same. It's kind of genius when you think about it. Then he would reseal the box for cash and then sell it for cash.
Oh, no,
And
this
then-
is crazy.
And you open it up and you got no Legos. It's pasta.
Yeah. And
And,
he did this. Like, this is amazing. I actually found this in the LA Times the other day. I'm glad you did this story. But it's nuts because, whenever you hear stories like this, you wonder if people did things with this much effort legally. Where would they be,
Where
right?
would we all be? Okay, we've got a little sound because we've got Ziggy Azarakan. He's the police officer talking about it.
One of the cases that occurred here in Orange County, they shared that they opened the box and instead of Legos, they found bags of dried pasta. And these were definitely sets that were consistent with what he was purchasing and then returning. These were Star Wars sets and Marvel sets, which have a very high value in a secondary market.
So he was getting the good stuff.
Oh, yeah, because
Slipping in the pasta.
We've talked about how expensive some of these things are. They have video in the CBS Evening News story with, just kind of carrying out the Lego sets. He did it sort of one by one meticulously, and he repeated it 70 times nationwide before he was caught.
This reminds me of my stolen shampoo, where they put in the film something or whatever to make the thing weighted, and then of course, it's the same idea. But my person did not mess with the tape. In other words, it looked sealed. They went in through the accordion bottom, that's how they do it, Fred. And finally,
The
in Sue's
accordion
news,
bottom.
you could push up and
Sounds
play. We have today's random fact. We say o'clock because in the 13th through the 17th centuries, clocks weren't prominent. So when someone was telling you the time from a clock and not a sundial, they'd just say, it's 4 of the clock. And that became o'clock.
There it is.
And that's it for Sue's News.
I like that.
I think I screwed up again, guys. I don't know what I
thought
did
that
there.
it was all right.
I did too. And the audience has to sit through this again. And Ethan's probably saying, what do you do? Now, I did do something wrong here.
What happened?
I pressed it too early.
Oh, darn it.
So you got to hit this thing like right on the bat. I've only done this my entire life. You'd think it wouldn't be too hard, but for whatever reasons, my fat fingers kind of hit the deal before I was supposed to. And then there was that moment of just hope. And I'm hoping on hope that there's going to be a voice from Fox Business
And there was.
that plays. Should I do anything in particular, Ethan, or should I just move past it?
Just be shush.
By a tornado over the weekend. The
There we
storm
go.
hit a new part of the plant located in the town of Normal, which is being used for parts storage and logistics for its upcoming R2 vehicle. Operations in the damaged area are expected to return later this week. The other part of the factory is up and running today. That's your money now.
I know that hiring can be challenging. You sort through tons of resumes and you get too many so-so applicants. You're just waiting for someone to match your role perfectly. Well, now, there's a place where you can meet them fast. ZipRecruiter.
Need to hire right away. Start your search for strong candidates. The right fit awaits. Build your team. Build it sooner. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter.
Just head to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try it for free. And you're on your way to meeting your match. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try it now. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Try it free.
Let's get you some new, beautiful, energy-efficient Pella windows because Banner Construction can help you out with that, whether you're replacing windows for better energy efficiency, weather resistance, ease of maintenance, or just looking better because they're going to look beautiful from the inside and out. The team at Banner can work with you to make sure you get the right windows for your style and your budget. So it all starts with a free in-home design consultation. Look, one of the things that you want to do, we talk about Banner with the James Hardy fiber cement siding. You want to work with a certified Pella window contractor because you have a lot of options available. It can be challenging to find the right ones. But with Banner, they make sure that you find the right windows. And Pella offers exceptional energy, efficiency, style, and design. They put a lot of trust in a team from Banner who really have been installing those windows for 3+ decades in St. Louis. Pella stands for quality. The Pella brand is 101 years old. Banner Construction stands for quality as well. And you can find out more by calling 314-569-1050 or the website bannerconstruction.com.
Ouch! Checked from behind. Man, that's gotta hurt.
I'd hire Morgan & Morgan if I were them.
What?
Yeah, Dan, America's largest injury law firm. They serve up justice, ice, cold, law. Know what I mean?
I guess.
Their gloves come off when they fight for you.
Okay.
I'm talking a settlement slap shot.
Shouldn't we be talking about the game?
Yeah, Dan, Morgan & Morgan.
Proud partner of the St. Louis Blues. Injured? Dial Pound Law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Mrs. Weiland, why don't you go ahead and read the top line for me?
I should.
Next line.
Get my retirement. What's that?
Checked, Mrs. Weiland. Get your retirement checked.
Planning retirement on your own doesn't pass the eye test. Jerry Ricken and Heidi Ricken Provost at Ricken Financial can help bring your retirement into focus. Call 314-207-6211. Ricken Financial, making sure your retirement vision is 2020.
Investment advisory products and services made available through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
4:33. This portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly, heating, air conditioning, electrical, and plumbing.
For details and a list of all station contest rules, visit www.971talk.com/rules. Cutting through the spin. 97.1 FM Talk. St. Louis Conservative.
I don't know if the audience could hear, like when I was stuck in my broadcast moment here a couple of minutes ago with Fox Business, I said, Ethan, what do I do? And he was not on the microphone, but all he said was, shush.
Shush.
And then he pressed a button, and it kind of came all around full circle, right?
Yeah.
Look, the Cardinals are in Miami. They played tonight. They're on a tear right now, looking really, really good. Cusumano's going to join us in about 10 minutes, a little bit more than that, to talk about that. The Stanley Cup playoffs are underway, although without the Blues, unfortunately. It's tough because they close so strong. I mean, like, I don't know who had a better record in the last month of the season than the Blues. But then there's our soccer team that I don't think they're still doing well, right? They got skunked in Seattle over the weekend. Former Missouri Senator Jim Talent's going to join us with the latest on Iran, and then our friend Scotty Warmann, who is a host for FanDuel Sports. We'll talk a little Cardinals and Blues and maybe other sports as well coming up at 5:32. But I mentioned, so I got this text this afternoon from my friend Chris Smth. We've talked about him many times before. He had a very tragic story where he was shot in the head. The woman he was with was basically assassinated. 48 Hours did a story about this last year that was excellent. He's got some book deals and some movie deals in the works right now. But he also had a delivery story from today. But Chris is on the line. How are you? How are things going overall? Before you share our story, let's catch up. How are you?
I'm doing great, brothers. Great to see you, Jimmy Fallon.
Yes, he came out soon. We missed you, of course, a week ago at Jimmy Fallon, but Chris was there. You were sitting in the front row. You got to meet Jimmy. You did the VIP thing too, right?
Yeah, he's great. He said he wants to have me on his radio show too, Mark.
Well, he should have you on because your story is kind of amazing. But I'm sitting around getting ready for the show today. You called me. I didn't answer, but you told me this little story about what happened with the delivery. I think I misidentified it as being FedEx. But explain what happened today. This is something that's kind of interesting, I think.
All right. So for all the listeners know my situation. So I still walk with a cane. I'm unable to use a regular a walk behind trimmer. So my neighbors think I'm crazy. So I have my little scooter, my tricycle. I go around the yard with. So I trim my lawn with scissors. All right.
Okay.
So lo and behold, I'm like, they've got to make handheld trimmers. Well, they do. So I ordered a pair off Amazon. They should have been here yesterday by 5 p.m.
Right.
They didn't show up. I called this morning customer service. Oh, it's in St. Peter's. I'm like, fine. Call back about 1 o'clock. Well, it's in East St. Louis. I'm like, what? Well, I can get a message to the driver. I'm like, okay. The guy comes back, foreign guy from the Middle East, I'm assuming. But anyways, he says, do you speak Spanish? I'm like, what do you mean do I speak? I said, do I sound like I speak Spanish? I said, I'm Italian, I'm a German. And he said, well, the driver doesn't speak English or read English. And I said, you got to be fucking kidding me, man. I said, you got to get him off the road. I said, all of our street signs are in English in the United States of America. Sorry, Mark, but I'm a little passionate about that.
No. But let's wait. Hold on. I want you to pause here because this is crazy. You actually had someone from Amazon asking you if you could speak Spanish because the delivery dude did not speak English and could only understand Spanish, and the customer service dude couldn't do it and asked you to do it as the customer. That's what we're talking about here. That is unbelievable. And then admits that the guy's out driving for Amazon but can't read the road signs because he doesn't speak any English.
Speak or read English, he said, because he couldn't type him a note, so he had to find someone there in the call center he was with to actually type him a note that was in Spanish. So whenever I text you back about an hour later, I get a regular car pulls up my driveway. I'm like, who the heck's this? So some woman gets out of the car. I could tell she was some Spanish, Mexican, whatever, but she spoke English. Okay. But she said I had to get it from the driver since I was the only one who could speak English. I went, okay, well, you have a great day. Be safe out there on the road. She said, okay, thank you.
She actually told you that she had to go to the dude because she spoke Spanish.
Yes. Hey, you know what? At least they're very transparent, Mark.
But, I mean, that's a crazy story. It really is.
I mean, I said to my fiancée, Michelle, I said, only Chris. It only happened to me. I mean, come on, man. You can't make this crap up, Mark.
No, that's the thing. But it's beyond you. So what kind of faith does that give you if they're, look, I'm sure it's not easy to find employees and people that handle deliveries. But if you're hiring people out there, and we've had too many of these incidents turn very tragic. Your story's funny. We can laugh about it. We can say, oh, isn't that weird that the dude doesn't speak English? But look, people have been killed on the roads in situations like this.
It's dangerous. It is dangerous. You know what? They need to do Department of Transportation, Missouri. I mean, I know it's not a commercial driver's license to drive their vans around, but still, how can you walk in and get to the DMV here in Missouri, and if you cannot speak English or read English,
I don't know.
Get a driver's license. Politicians, wake up!
That is unreal. But thank you for sharing the story because I thought it was a good one. Now, were you out there planting some pumpkins or some pre-pumpkin tractoring this afternoon?
Yes, I was on my little green tractor. Mark, do you want to go for a ride?
I'm good right now. But what Chris does, though, Sue.
I was down there working the ground, tilling it up, brother, because I owe you a couple of years' worth of 50 to 100-pound pumpkins, I believe, my friend.
He grows giant pumpkins, Sue, and he's finally getting back into this. And one of the things, when before all this happened with Chris being shot and everything, when we were friends, I went out. I can't remember. Didn't I meet you somewhere in the parking lot? It was almost like a drug deal, but it was a pumpkin deal.
At Bandanas on Dorset Road.
That's right. You remember that, right?
Yes,
and
I do.
I took some big pumpkins home and put them in my front yard. So I'm going to count on that for this year, right?
Yes, sir, brother.
All right, dude. I hope you get your lawn cut and trimmed up. Did you really say you were doing it with a scissors?
Yes, dude. I swear to God, you can ask anybody.
That wasn't smart.
My neighbors think I'm nuts. All right.
Well,
you all know we are.
They're not wrong. They're not wrong.
No.
All right,
No,
we'll see you.
Banana trees and pumpkins. All right,
take care. I want to talk about something here before we get Frank on because I'm being very serious that this is something that could help Chris perhaps because it's helping people who have PTSD. It's helping people who have anxiety. It's helping people that have a lot of different issues mentally. And I've talked about it before. It's this psychedelic drug. It's called Ibogaine. And there's movement here in Missouri. This all came across my attention last year in the Washington Post when actually I heard Rick Perry on Fox. And I realized that the former governor of Texas had written a piece for the Washington Post on Ibogaine. It was very fascinating. And he was talking about this substance that's very, maybe a little controversial, but it's not really FDA approved, but it's helping military people and other folks when it comes to PTSD. So over the weekend, this is huge. President Trump signed an executive order to accelerate research into these drugs for the treatment of serious mental illnesses. The problem is that, a lot of people have old feelings. Even Rick Perry admitted this in the piece that, you think that these psychedelics are just wacky drugs that drug addicts used or people used in the 70s, but there are these compounds that really, really can have a dramatic effect. I mean, a dramatic effect. And Rick Perry himself has gone under this treatment. It's not legal here in the U.S., so what we've had even, former military folks that have gone to Mexico to get the treatment. So The state of Texas allocated $50 million. There is an effort here in Missouri, and I've talked to some of the people who are involved in this, on getting some money for some research projects for this. And this $50 million, I wish it was a little bit more, goes to work with the states that are already developing programs. So Texas would be one of those, and maybe Missouri would be one of those as well. Brian Hubbard, who's the guy that's leading this charge, Brian's a character. We're trying to get him on. We almost had him on today, but he talked about this over the weekend.
Ibogaine stands in a category by itself. It is the most powerful psychedelic of all. No one, by way of probably 9 out of 10 of Americans, have ever heard of it. It has been recognized by U.S. Special Forces veterans who have traveled to Mexico as a last stop before the funeral home as being a breakthrough therapeutic to treat the wounds of war, post-traumatic stress, and traumatic brain injury.
Dramatically. When you start looking at the effects and what they've discovered. Now, again, we have to do all this research here, and Brian would tell you, and I think Fred just told me he's going to be on the air tomorrow, this is a long-term process. And by the way, this is something that needs to be very, very specifically medically supervised, right? So that's something that they talk about. It's important. Joe Rogan was at the signing for the EO over the weekend.
These drugs are illegal not because they're harmful. They're illegal because of the 1970 Controlled Substances Act. We're free of that now. Thanks to all these people that received to me, and thanks to President Trump.
Yeah, I'm on Team Rogan here, and I knew that President Trump is interested in alternative, treatments for some of these terrible things. And when you start, we'll get into this with Brian tomorrow night. When you start looking at very specific cases of some of these military guys in particular who were just tortured. I mean, their lives were, they're on the verge of suicide, you name it. And this treatment has turned things around in amazing ways. So that's why Governor Perry and President Trump and others are on board with this, Joe Rogan included.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, I'm about to post on X a picture or a little bit of video of this accident. It's eastbound 255 before Telegraph, and they've got the right lanes blocked, and traffic, of course, is stacking up behind that. So if you're traveling in that area, do expect delays. Now, elsewhere today, it hasn't been bad, at least on the Missouri side. And that means if you are westbound on 64, it's kind of the usual volume. And right now it's moderate. It's Kings Highway out through McCausland, and then Highway, actually it's Winghaven now, out through Highway N and 70. 70 isn't bad out of downtown. What is bad is eastbound 70. There's an accident past Salisbury, and it's created a jam there. We also have road work in the left lanes on the Poplar Street Bridge on the Illinois side, and it's created a massive jam back into Missouri. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
97.1 FM Talk is proud to support the Guns N' Hoses First Responders Soccer Cup, May 30th at Worldwide Technology Soccer Park. Law enforcement battles firefighters and EMTs on the field, all for a great cause. 971talk.com/events.
Beat the spring cleaning rush and zero res. Mark Cox here. Buy one room of carpet, get one clean for free, unlimited rooms, and whole system duct cleaning for just $5.99. Visit ZeroResSTL.com.
License number GL250000615.
We've seen all kinds of clogs, so remember the rule. Only flush 3 things. Number 1, number 2, and toilet paper.
What about my dinosaurs?
No.
My monster truck?
Nope.
What about...
If it's not the big 3, don't flush it.
But if someone does flush a dinosaur...
Call Grasser. We clear the clog and get things moving again.
Green is always Grasser at GrasserHomeservices.com.
It's Tom Ackerman for Ophthalmology Associates, the doctor's doctors, 314-966-5000 or online at youridoc.com.
Want to make the most of your tax refund? File with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it with a personalized plan designed to help you hit your money goals. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Mark Reardon is St. Louis Conservative.
All right, Frank Cusumano with us on this Monday afternoon. Very excited to talk with him because there's so much to talk about, including how about our St. Louis Cardinals right now. Did we ever have a doubt, Frank, that it was going to turn out this way at the beginning of the season?
Mark, we all predicted them to finish well above 500. We had a great deal of confidence in the Redbirds throughout the entire spring training.
Man, this is fun, though, right? Now, they're in action tonight in Miami. You know, things can kind of turn. I didn't like the way that weekend with the Red Sox turned out. But look, they're hanging in there. They're having fun. They're scoring some runs. They're not quitting. They're making come-from-behind victories. Can't ask for more than that right now.
Yeah, and, the good news is, the Cardinals are coming in smoking hot. They've won 7 out of 10. The Marlins have lost 7 out of 10. We're starting with our most consistent pitcher, Michael McGreevy. Then after that, Dustin May. Mark, it's like there's some things that the naysayers want to say, well, their ERA is one of the worst in baseball, and they're beating bad teams. I don't care. It's 5 in a row. It's 5-0 in extra inning games. It's I think it's 8-1 in one-run games. They're just finding a way to win. I'm not sure it's going to last the entire season, but just enjoy the ride while we have it now.
I cannot agree more. Absolutely.
Say all you want about ERA, Frank. I can tell you whose ERA is at 000, and it's Riley O'Brien, who has been shutting the door in the 9th inning for the Redbirds. Listen, this is a guy that had some success in a limited role in 2025. It increased as the year went on once they traded some of their bullpen pieces. But, man, I don't know if anyone expected the dominance that he has pitched with in 2026. He has been a top 2 closer in Major League Baseball to start the year.
Yeah, and it's not like he's doing it with cute stuff or trying to outsmart the opposition. He's throwing 99. I mean, he is he has a really understated personality, and it's kind of almost comical that they turn off all the lights and they play the music when he comes in because of his personality. But boy, when he gets on the mound, man, that's nasty stuff.
Jordan Walker continues to unleash power, doesn't he?
Yeah, and that hitting streak continues to grow. I guess it's up to 14 as we speak. And, the big story, though, over the weekend, Mark, was Mason Wynn with 7 RBIs. And if I were Mason Wynn, those 30 family and friends that were in Miami, that were in Houston, I'd send them all to Miami.
No
because
kidding.
That clearly just got him going, and he was insane the entire series.
That's so important because, look, I was worried. I think a lot of us were a little worried about that slow start. We need him for sure. So that's awesome to see. By the way, how would you like to be the Mets right now?
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
With that payroll and with that team as bad as they are, that's crazy. That really is.
11 in a row or 12 in a row? 11 in a row they've lost right now. Ethan, you had something else?
Yeah, Frank, I'm curious. You mentioned the hot start right now for the Cardinals. What do you want to see in this upcoming series against a Marlins team that's young you could argue in a similar spot to St. Louis with how young they are, what they're trying to do there, developing some young pieces. What do you want to see from St. Louis so that they can carry this success they've had back home against Seattle?
Well, I think what we got to see is the bottom of the order providing a little more offense. Now, we love the first 4 hitters. In fact, I was looking at it today. They don't have in their top 4 a guy with an on-base percentage of below 366. And Wynn is starting to hit. You just like to see Gorman be a little bit more consistent. He had a big home run and had some good moments over the weekend. But you just got to make sure that you're getting production 6 through 9. That's the big thing with the Cardinals, or 5 through 9.
So they don't make the playoffs, but the Blues finish very, very strong here. And we don't know if we've seen Jordan Binnington's last game in the net for the St. Louis Blues. I think that might be anticipated. But thoughts moving forward as they don't make the playoffs. But look, a lot of things to kind of hold your hand on and be positive about the way they closed.
Yeah, Mark, I was surprised that how enthusiastic or positive the possible scenario of Jordan Binnington coming back. I mean, he made it seem like I love St. Louis. I love this team. I like the future, and I want to stick around. So why not have, Joel Hofer as your starter and then your greatest goaltender of all time as your backup if he's content with being a backup? And, knowing Jordan Binnington, he's going to have a hellacious offseason, and he's not just going to hand the job over to Joel Hofer. So I think that's a big offseason question that the Blues, judging from the exit interviews, have got their answer. Binnington is content to play any role to stay in town.
Frank, as you mentioned, those exit interviews were over the weekend. Was there anything else of note that you took from those? I know that there were several players asked about, what potential future looks like, including Jordan Kyrou on potentially being traded, Holloway on a potential extension. What stood out to you from players' comments, coaches' comments, Army's comments? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Army comment about Robert Thomas, because if we go back to the trade deadline, now the Blues deny this, but other teams in the NHL talked about it, that Robert Thomas was actually on the block. But for Doug Armstrong to come out and say that there's no general manager in hockey who appreciates Robert Thomas more than I appreciate Robert Thomas, and you throw in the fact they need a captain, and that top line of he, Snuggerud, and Holloway was one of the best in the league down the stretch, you get the impression that, Robert Thomas is not only going to be here next year, but he could spend a long time in St. Louis. And he should, because when he's right, he is your best player.
I don't follow this as closely as some people, but our soccer team seems to still be struggling a bit, right?
Well, they got to avoid Seattle. I mean, every time they go there, they just get annihilated. They're sleepless in Seattle. They got killed 4-1. The only, silver lining in the weekend was Edu Lubin, who lost his wife Alona to brain cancer a few weeks ago, rejoined the team for the first time, and they put him in late in the game, and he scored a goal. Yeah. It was extremely emotional for him and for the entire team, because he's like one of the best people you could ever meet in sports, and that was really a cool moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was indeed. Frank, the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. I know we're expected to see St. Louis and Jeremiah Love get drafted pretty early. Is there anyone else from St. Louis that you know of that fans here should be keeping an eye on that could go this upcoming weekend?
Well, Kevin Coleman from Mizzou, the St. Mary's wide receiver, I think has a chance to go on that third day. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but you did bring up Jeremiah. I'm telling you, running backs don't go early in NFL drafts anymore unless your name is Jeremiah Love, and the league is in love with him. That's why Kansas City had to trade for a veteran running back, because they knew at 9 or 10 he wasn't going to be there. That's how highly regarded the CBC product is.
I think it's going to be fun. I love the way that they're moving this around to different cities. Of course, we'll never have it come here, but they're in Pittsburgh for the draft. But I can't believe, did you know that they're giving some of the kids off school this week or doing remote learning because of the draft? My goodness.
Well, I wish I was in school.
Hey, when I was teamed with Brooke Cusumano at Padel and Pickle on Saturday, we were smoking the competition. Your daughter is amazing. She's awesome. We missed you on Saturday, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, she is a competitive little thing, isn't she?
Oh, my gosh. It's unbelievable. I love being on her team and not against her. I will say that right now.
She enjoyed playing with you, Mark.
All right, Frank. We'll talk on Friday.
Thanks,
Have a
Frank.
great week.
All right.
Brooke, by the way, Brooke is a new mother. She has an 8-month-old, and I was unaware of that.
Impressive.
If you could see her. She won the golf championship twice. She's that family, I'm telling you. Monique, his wife, too, they're very, very competitive. But I like the fire that they bring, because I don't like losing, I told you. Who likes losing, right?
Nobody.
But you take it personally sometimes. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we return, there's really, I started with this, I thought you kind of have to accept that the reporting is somewhat accurate. I thought it was a pretty fair piece last night by Cecilia Vega on 60 Minutes about the enriched uranium situation, because you could bomb the crap out of Iran, which apparently we're on the cusp of doing again if they don't reach a deal, but you still don't have the enriched uranium. Former Missouri Senator Jim Talent, who is an expert on all these things, will join us after 5 o'clock at 5:04. And then Scotty Warman's going to talk a little bit more Cardinals and Blues at 5:32.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Accident eastbound 255 before Telegraph in the right lanes, and that's caused a delay. I put it up on X at Susan6768. There's also an accident eastbound 70, which is now westbound 44, past Broadway, headed into downtown, and they've got the left lane blocked there. Traffic is just jammed behind it. The worst of it is the jam headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. We've got road work again on the Illinois side of the bridge, and it's blocking the two left lanes through Wednesday at 4. Created a parking lot jam back past Jefferson. Also slow on the Illinois side is eastbound 64 at 255. Now back on the Missouri side, it's the usual volume. Westbound 48 Kings Highway, and it's a little slow out at Highway N. And southbound 270, just moderate volume from Olive down through Doherty Ferry, and then it's looking better. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
When you're approaching retirement, there are a lot of questions to answer. Do you have enough money to fund your income for life? How should you claim Social Security? And what's your plan for health care and long-term care? Hi, I'm Eric Robert, Director of Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Don't leave your retirement to chance. It's crucial to understand and address relevant risks before you retire. Our team can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com. Or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Here's something I run into a lot with younger homeowners, and happened to be with my little boy. He was looking at purchasing homes. This house had a 20-plus-year-old furnace and air conditioner. And, of course, my advice was never buy a house with that old of an air conditioner. You will be buying a new one. And he goes, well, how much does a new one cost? For his size home, I told him figure tens of thousands to over $20,000. If you're looking at a house, my personal opinion is make sure it's a newer unit. If not, request buyers to put in a newer unit. That makes it easier on your 15 or 30-year mortgage if it's included in the loan. Just my piece of advice for that. But if you're hearing this after the fact and you do need a new air conditioner, sorry to hear that, but call me, Bart Inman, one easy number in Missouri and Illinois. The easiest of numbers. It is 314-293-2600 or bartinman.com. God bless.
Does heart disease run in your family? Give yourself peace of mind with our cardiac MRI bundles at Specialty MRI. Personalized scans designed to give you clear, meaningful answers. No long waiting rooms. Scan today for a peace of mind tomorrow. Call us at 636-591-1288. That's 636-591-1288.
When you're learning something new, experience matters. At Lifestyles Unlimited, we've spent over 30 years teaching people how real estate investing works and how to build income with a clear, step-by-step strategy. Our program is designed to help you learn what to do, why it works, and how to take action at your own pace. Join today for just $297, a 60% savings off the regular price. Text radio to 88007. That's RADIO to 88007. Presented by Lifestyles Unlimited.
So, as I mentioned, there was a real interesting 60 Minutes story that was on last night that talked about the enriched uranium that Iran has. And what was, I think, the most interesting part of it is they got very specific on what might be needed militarily and otherwise to get that uranium, which may be deep, deep, deep in mountains and very, very blocked off. But we'll get Senator Jim Talent's position on this. He, of course, is one of the experts when it comes to geopolitics and does great work and is always a guest here on the show. So Jim Talent coming up at 5:04. Scotty Warmann is going to join us at 5:32. We'll talk a little bit more Cardinals and Blues and then cut of the day right after that. It's all coming up in the next hour on 97.1 FM Talk.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777. Energy production. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. President Trump using emergency powers as gas prices rise.
The president is invoking the Defense Production Act to boost domestic petroleum production and deploy large-scale energy infrastructure to expand LNG transmission and coal power generation. The executive orders come as Americans continue to pay high gas prices. President Trump and other administration officials say the oil market will stabilize and gas prices rapidly fall once the war in Iran Ramadan is over and the critical Strait of Hormuz is reopened. Iran has severely limited access to the waterway where about 20% of the global oil supply transits. In response, President Trump has ordered a naval blockade, preventing any vessel from sailing to or from Iranian ports in the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. This is House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries accuses Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth of getting the U.S. into a war with no exit plan.
He's the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history, and we're seeing it all play out right now in real time.
Jeffries is promising to put another war powers resolution into the House that would limit the president's abilities to continue any action in Iran. The pause in fighting between the U.S. and Iran expires tomorrow. Lori Chavez DeRemer has resigned her position as Labor Secretary after a series of allegations of abuses of power, including an affair with a subordinate and drinking alcohol on the job. She's the third administration official to leave after the president fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem last month and ousted Attorney General Pam Bondi earlier this month. Wall Street stocks gave back a bit of their record-breaking gains. The Dow lost 4 points, the Nasdaq minus 64, the S&P down 16. Oil prices topped $95 a barrel again. America's listening to Fox News.
My name is Christine, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, was a healthy 34-year-old, and 3 months later, he was gone. Thankfully, he had life insurance. Ethos made it so easy. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. 100% online, no medical exam. Life insurance didn't take away the loss, but it did give us the space to just grieve.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/save. Ethos.com/save. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion, and when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids. Rolaids' dual-active formula has calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. Yeah, you heard right. 2 actives for that powerful relief. And the best part? The roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get back to moving mountains.
Rolade spells powerful relief. Read each label. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Temperatures were a touch warmer this afternoon. The southerly flow really takes hold Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Clear skies, right around 60 this evening, 52 for the low. Tuesday, sunny, warmer in the afternoon, breezy from the south, 80 degrees. Tuesday night, clear skies, 58. Wednesday, sunny and 81. Thursday, sunny, 83. Unsettled weather late Thursday night, Friday and Friday night. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
I honestly don't know if they mentioned this at the top of the hour, Fox News, but the big story of the day, Tim Cook exiting as Apple's CEO after 15 years. John Chernis, who is the Senior VP of Hardware Engineering, is going to become the next CEO. Cook will become Executive Chairman of Apple's Board of Directors in, I guess the end of the summer, September 1st. So that's a pretty big move. I know that we have Tech Talk Tuesdays with George Rosenthal coming up. We'll ask him about that. I know he also, so I sent him the video of the robot that won the marathon in China, and he said, oh, no, that's already on my list. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow for sure. Okay, so I mentioned the 60 Minutes interview that was done last night on Iran's enriched uranium, and I thought it was pretty interesting, but one of the more interesting aspects of it, it was not totally against military intervention. I thought it was a relatively balanced portrayal of what might be necessary to really go in and secure the nuclear material. But here's part of it.
Would an operation like this be worth risking American lives?
In my opinion, yes.
Retired Vice Admiral Robert Harward is a former Navy SEAL and Deputy Director of U.S. Central Command. He led elite special operations in the Middle East and says an operation in Iran could take many weeks and require a large footprint involving all the branches of the military.
It's high risk. You have to occupy territory. You have to confront. You have to force your way in. So all those risks are inherent in that operation, but we can do it.
So they're talking about the HEU, the highly enriched uranium, former United States Senator Jim Talent is with us tonight to react to that and some other things that are happening in that part of the world. Jim, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, Mark. Hope you're doing well.
I am. Before I get to some of what I just played and some of the things I saw in 60 Minutes last night, where are we currently, or can you even really tell, with the strait being open or closed, the economic blockade? I mean, to me, it looks like there are a lot of things that are working, but it's pretty hard to determine whether there's someone inside Iran who has enough authority to say, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. Because it's hard for me to believe they're going to roll over and say, okay, come on into the mountainside, get the HEU, and then we'll move forward, right?
Yeah. Okay, so on a strategic level, the highest level, the object of this is to put them in a position where their two options are to surrender on our terms, in essence, or be destroyed. Now, this is what happened in Gaza with Hamas. That's the closest parallel. I won't go into that, but they ended up, we'll turn over the hostages and agree to disarm, because the alternative was the IDF going into the rest of Gaza and doing there what they did in the half of it that the IDF still occupies. So what is being destroyed in this context means? It means that we have successfully attacked their center of gravity, their ability to generate and sustain coercive power in an integrated way. So we've already devastated their military inventories and their defense industrial base. The blockade is choking their economy, and we took out, or the Israelis took out, mostly it was Israelis, 3 or 4 of the top ranks of their leadership, so that it's very difficult for them to integrate power, which is one of the reasons it's hard to know what's going on, because we don't know who has the upper hand and who's running Iran. That's one of the reasons they sent such a big delegation. In the first place, if you were in Islamabad before, you weren't going to get killed, so they had a few days of immunity from that. And then the other thing is they were each watching each other. All the different factions were watching each other. So, I mean, that's basically what's at stake here. Now, the thing that's hard to say, or harder to say, is what the terms are that we're going to insist on. I think it's at minimum, it's going to be they give up the whole nuclear program. So, no, we are not going to go in and take it in an adversarial mission.
You don't think that? You think that's highly unlikely for something like that to happen?
No,
okay,
that's not going to happen. And I think, the admiral. I shouldn't second guess an admiral. I mean, he's right. We could do it. But we would have to marshal a much different force package than we now have, with a whole lot more ground forces. And we don't want to do that. We want them to give it up. We want them to withdraw any threats to the strait. In other words, that's their way of signaling that they're bending the knee.
But why would they do it? That's the thing, because it just doesn't seem. I think the people of Iran that are getting crushed right now, even some of the wealthy people that are getting crushed economically, would say, yeah, hand it over. But the way they described it last night, that some of this stuff is so deep into these tunnels and into these mountainsides, that's why this military strike would have to be so, if it's the way you're going. But one thing that caught my attention is what somebody said last night, and I can't remember the person that was featured that said this. He goes, look, no doubt the strikes, the war have set back the capabilities a lot, but they still have, this was the quote, they still have their knowledge. They have their knowledge, and they think close to 1,000 pounds of uranium that's enriched to 60%, and that's pretty close to being ready to use, right?
If they can get at it. So one of the issues is, where is it? Now, I think we know where it is, because I think the Israelis know where it is. It's probably buried in Natanz and
one was Isfahan, right? Is that it?
Yeah. Well, Isfahan is a different lab. It'll come to me in a second.
That's okay.
It's probably buried underneath one of their mountains. So getting it out would require a long effort, which would be done under the inspection of the IAEA. And this assumes, again, that they're willing to let that happen. Now, why should they? Because if they don't, we're going to continue the blockade. And this is how they get their revenue. This is how they pay their people. I mean, the economy is already a basket case. And then the other thing the president's saying in Truth Social, and this time I think it will happen, he's going to strike at their economic infrastructure, the bridges, utilities, et cetera, turn the lights out in the country. So, I mean, in other words, keep imposing pain and consequences if they don't do what we want. Now, these are fanatics. That they're much harder to break than, for example, the Venezuelans. We didn't have to use much of this playbook with Venezuela because they saw where the state of play was going, and they basically gave in. These people are different.
Right.
I don't know how long they're going to hold out. The IRG has reports I trust. The IRG has taken over and are supposedly more intransigent. So again, I think we have to see. Personally, I tend to agree with you. I don't think we're going to get an agreement that satisfies our terms this time around. So I think it's not unlikely that we'll see another wave of punishment, if you will. But I mean, now we're at a tactical level, a negotiating tactical level, and the president plays his cards pretty close to the vest. So I don't think anybody can be certain.
And he's saying, this was an interview he did today with PBS where he said a lot of bombs are going to start going off if they don't come to an agreement, right? Yeah. He said as the ceasefire deadline looms, then a lot of bombs start going off. No nuclear weapons. Very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So if, he made that threat from a couple of weeks ago, they came up with the ceasefire. Now here we are 2 weeks later. It doesn't. They didn't even know if there's going to actually be a representative in Islamabad to be someone to negotiate with when Witkoff and Kushner and Vance are there. So that sounds problematic when it comes to any kind of diplomatic efforts. But, I mean, Trump's at the point where he's not afraid to follow through on the threats, but he'd have to pretty much be prepared to follow through on those threats tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what you would think. I think he's going to follow through on the threats. He doesn't like to give away the timing. And there's a couple other things working here. We all know that at some point the protesters are going to hit the street again. And we don't know what activity is being taken covertly regarding that. We do know that one of the conditions for regime collapse is regime fracture. In other words, where elements of the regime start turning against each other. These negotiations are producing that. Sort of like a maximum fracture policy is going on here. I would add a couple of other things that I would be surprised to see, because I think the president, he believes, and I think he's correct, that his hand is getting stronger and stronger all along, and he's not the kind of negotiator, to give away something give away something he doesn't have to give away. So I'd be surprised to see a lot of upfront sanctions relief, and I would be surprised to see any kind of a commitment not to support the protesters, at least if it includes the Israelis, because I think that's there in the background. It's a leverage point over the Iranian leadership if they manage to hang on for a while.
So all of this is still a little difficult to gauge. We have the videos of things getting blown up and everything like that. But on the economic front, look, every indication that we have is this blockade is very, very effective, and it's affecting that country in devastating ways and will continue. One of the questions I think I had last week is, why didn't they do that a little sooner, the economic blockade?
Well, it's a good question. I think part of all of this, this is a phased operation. So the first thing to do was to take out the leaders. Remember, I was talking about the center of gravity being generating, sustaining integrated power. They can't integrate it anymore because they don't have a command and control system. The second phase was to go after their air defenses, then their inventory of missiles and drones, then the defense industrial base. And that took a lot of assets. We have a huge force in the region, but blockading the strait while you were doing all that probably would have strained the capacity of the force that we had. The other thing is, because they then went ahead and said they threatened the strait first, that opened the door diplomatically, and it completely enraged the Gulf states, who are already enraged. They have told us and the Iranians that if there's any agreement that leaves the Iranians the option of trying to do this again, that they'll stop exporting oil. They are not going to. This has gone a long way, this whole conflict, towards creating that partnership we've been trying to create for some years now in the Middle East with the Gulf states, Israel, Egypt, Jordan, led by the diplomatic leadership of the United States. So that's probably why. It's just we were staging this, and that was a later stage, and then they they gave us the opportunity and the reason to do it.
So one thing that this is my opinion. We'll see if you have a different opinion or other people have a different opinion. When you get into a situation, everything that I've absorbed from last week, read about the negotiations, know about what's about to happen, watching the 60 Minutes piece, there is nothing about any of this that says that this whole thing is going to wrap up quickly. Am I wrong about that?
I think probably you are.
I hope I am. I'm wrong about a lot of things, so I hope I am.
Well, it depends on what you mean by quickly. I mean, I think, and again, now we're in the level of, and I to distinguish between strategy, tactics, et cetera. The tactics are the individual things that you do to implement the strategy. We have an enormous number of options. I mean, I don't want to digress too much, but one thing that surprised me to this point is we have not seen cyber used. And we have a whole lot of cyber options. So it's hard to say because it depends on how much more we, which means the president, thinks we can get out of them. And it depends on what options he's got available that he thinks will produce that. And we just don't. I mean, I'd love to tell you I know.
Nobody knows. I know that. And
I know what we're headed at. I know why we're doing this. I know our position is already immensely stronger. I think this was the right thing to do at the right time. But finishing it up in a way that gets us as big a win as possible is just, I mean, personally, I'm giving Trump a lot of running room because I think he's made a lot of good decisions to this point, and then I'll judge by the results.
Right, and I think that's fair because the results still have to, obviously include all that enriched uranium. Former Senator Town, Thank you so much for coming on. I always appreciate that, so thanks a lot.
Well, anytime.
All right, take care. And I don't know that this is going to resolve itself. When I say quickly, maybe I'm thinking even in terms of Memorial Day or something like that. So Trump, yesterday warned that, and this is where he gets into a little trouble with the hyperbole, that the whole country would be blown up if it fails to sign a new deal. He said that and some of this was said to PBS today as well, he would knock out every single power plant, every single bridge, unless the leaders accept a very reasonable deal offered by the United States. If they don't sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. Now, I don't think that that's really what would happen. I think it would be targeted toward, bridges and power plants. I don't think he's going to wipe out civilians, which you would get into war crimes and things like that. But you just don't know. He said in all caps, like if George Gray from The Price is Right would be here, he always has to shout things in all caps. He said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." So no more Mr. Nice Guy. And he's promising things are going to, the blank is going to hit the fan if this fails. I can't see how there's any chance that diplomacy works because they don't even know if someone's going to be there to negotiate. So the bombs are going to fall.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got an accident now on southbound 270 approaching 55, and they've got the right lanes blocked. Looks like they may have cleared the accident eastbound on 255, so that's some good news in the Telegraph area. There was a stall reported eastbound 6440 past Maryville Center. Watch for that one in the right lane. And on 70, a stall westbound past 141, also in the right lane. So the jam behind the 270 accident is back to 44, but it's also a slow go headed for 6440. And eastbound 40 just jammed, headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. We've got the left lanes blocked until, Wednesday at 4 on the Illinois side of the bridge. And, of course, eastbound 70 jams at 64 on the Illinois side. Out west, 70 not bad. 64 is slow. West of Winghaven, out through the 70 split. This report is brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design. For over 25 years, they've been St. Louis's trusted choice for transforming homes inside and out. From windows and outdoor spaces to kitchens and baths, quality craftsmanship and lifetime warranties. Go to lakesiderd.com. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Well, we would love to see you a week from tomorrow night. That would be Tuesday, the 28th of April at the Doubletree in Chesterfield with Thomas Helbig and the team from the Retirement Advisor Group. If you want to get your free personalized retirement income plan, this is what you can do. And if you're worried about questions like, when can I retire? Will I have enough money to retire? What should I do with the 401k once I turn 59 and a half? Would you like to learn investment strategies that have given a lot of people here in St. Louis market growth while avoiding the market losses at the same time? And what Thomas and his nephew, Bob Kershaw, and Bob's wife, Tammy, will tell you is that the secret is safely linking to the market. And that's the strategy that they're going to really teach you about if you show up next Tuesday night. So these are free events. If you go to retirementkey.com, you'll see a tab right on the front of the page. All you have to do is press that tab, get registered. Then we know that you're coming because, again, it's free. We just have to reserve a seat. Now, the other option is, and there's nothing wrong with this at all, some people a little bit more comfortable in the group setting. If you want to do it one-on-one, you can do that as well. Go right in, call the number 314-993-9494, and they'd love to meet with you in person. If not, we'll see you next Tuesday night in Chesterfield at the Doubletree off of Swingley Road. Get registered today.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. If you've been injured in a car accident, call America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, my mission has been to deliver more for our clients, to deliver more for you. Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
If you need a garage door, this could be your lucky day. Entries are open now for the $5,000 sweepstakes at Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. A winner will be chosen at random to receive $5,000 towards new garage doors, openers, or front entry doors of your choice. Deadline to enter is the end of the month to win the $5,000 sweepstakes with Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. Enter now at overheaddoorstlouis.com. You can't win if you don't enter at overheaddoorstlouis.com.
The Mark Reardon Show is St. Louis conservative.
Ooh, here is maybe I should save this for audio cut of the day, but I do have some other stuff that I want to use for that segment in just a little bit. By the way, Scotty Warman's coming up. We're going to talk a little Cardinals and Blues and some sports at 5:30. Then I'll have audio cut of the day. So this is actually audio from, I spent some time up in the, what I call the People's Republic of Wisconsin. I mean, there aren't many more places on the planet that are more focused on socialism and communism outside of Moscow, New York City, and Madison, Wisconsin. The rest of the state can be somewhat normal, not necessarily Milwaukee County, but they are nut job kook crazies in Madison, Wisconsin. So this is actually a high school teachers union meeting where they're talking about how really to indoctrinate kids even earlier than they already indoctrinate them. And by the way, I think they're well off, and running on doing this because they indoctrinate these kids starting even in elementary school. But this is a little flavor, at least they're being honest here with some of the plans that they have for these young minds.
I'm Tina. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. Lifetime member of the Teaching Assistants Association, which is an AFT. I'm also a lead steward in the Madison Teachers Incorporated because I left higher education and work in a high school now. So everyone who raised your hand and said that you got radicalized in college, imagine if you got radicalized 4 years earlier. Okay?
So that's a positive thing. She's not speaking in terms of, ooh, that's a bad thing because you might be radicalized and hurt this country that you live in. No. She's advocating for, why wait for college? Let's do this in junior high or high school.
There's a dialectic between these organizations, but there are some major differences. High schools are a cross-section of our community. So when we look around higher ed and we're like, why is everyone so white and rich here? Look at the public schools. Now, people do a lot of research on what's going wrong in public schools. Why are children struggling to read? Why are there these dropout rates? And they all say, well, not all, but a lot of people point to teacher preparation programs, which is in part a backhanded way to challenge teachers' unions, right? And I do want to say, there is no organization that does more to improve the conditions of the lives of children than teachers' unions.
Okay, that's not true at all. It's really the teachers that do it, and they have to do it outside of their unions because their unions are so political. And I take, I guess I would have a lot of empathy for teachers. I see what happens with my daughter and some of the challenges that these teachers have in the aftermath of COVID, and that was not their fault. Certainly their union failed them on that front in particular. This is a little bit more from this meeting.
We need to train high schoolers how to organize. High school teachers, our hands are really tied. They're banning books, they're cutting funding, and we all, if you have children in school and they're in a club, That teacher is not paid for that time.
Okay, first thing here, there's no banning books. This is the biggest bunch of nonsense that we hear from these activists on a regular basis. It happens in our local paper here in the Post and local media when they talk about things that are happening out in St. Charles. There's no banning of books. Are there, just like there would be with a computer, restrictions on what my daughter who's 11 can see versus someone who's 18 or 19 or even someone who's 15 or 16? Yes, there are, because there should be. Every parent would want that, right? Why is that any different? It's not, this is rhetorical, than having a book that might be in a library that is not age appropriate because it talks about blowjobs and things like that, okay? Sorry to be so crass with the language, but that's exactly what Gender Queer, one of the books that these heroes always hold up, and one of the books that the newspapers never show you the actual images in the language. Well, that's what they like to focus in on, is blowjobs for high school kids in that book. So that's what we're dealing with. But this goes on here in Wisconsin.
Is advising them. They're going in on their lunches. Y'all know, it's a lot. Okay, we help children. The next thing.
She doesn't even know what she's trying to do for these kids. These kids are behind in reading and writing in the basics. They have no social skills. And she's interested in the alphabet mafia and the clubs that welcome the trannies.
Basically, I used to, when I was a graduate student organizer, I was always saying we need to organize undergraduates to join in this struggle because we're students and workers. And now I just want to say, because I think a lot of people here are in higher ed, work with the high schools, connect with the teachers unions, connect with your kids' teachers. Give them, I'm going to be honest, give us money. Like on Teacher Appreciation Day, send a gift card to your high school teachers. Elementary school teachers get it, high school don't.
So I'm all fine with, trying to say nice things to teachers, but think about what she's advocating for here. She's not talking about reading and writing or learning anything or algebra or geometry, nothing like that. It's about activating these students in their political being and making them do these things earlier than perhaps they would. And you have schools that all over the country are giving kids off. They're doing it on May 1st because it's May Day. The communists love that, of course, right? But they're letting kids get out of school in order to protest and to activate, an organized protest and be more radical. That's what they're teaching these kids right now.
Offer material support whenever you can. Show up at their protests, send an email and say that you support them.
No.
Because school boards listen to families. Follow your school board of the local public schools. Follow them on social media. Go to those meetings if you can. But small policy changes will transform your city. That's how we get people into higher education, is through having strong public schools. Now, I want to say, if you're on campus and you're organizing, you have a school of education, probably, right? There's a place where people learn how to become teachers. Why are K-12 teachers overwhelmingly white and from well-to-do families or rural areas? Higher education is a really hostile space for students of color.
And here we go. Here we go. It's always the identity politics. I've played approximately 2.5 minutes to this woman, and she has not one time talked about something that would help a child be more educated. Not one time.
I'm not going to explain that, but...
Thank you much. I'm not stopping you. I'm just letting you know we're at 3 minutes, but it's fine. Continue.
Okay, sorry. 30 seconds. University of Wisconsin-Madison is one of the top schools of education in the country. It used to be 300 students applied every year for the School of Ed, 200 were rejected. Now we accept everyone, they go into classrooms, it's not for them. That means there's 200 people every year in my city who want to do good and are willing to do extra work for no money and spend an entire year unpaid in student teaching, and they're just kind of lost, right? So go to the School of Ed, offer to do guest lectures in teachers' classes to teach about unions, because we need better political education in higher education for K-12 teachers.
Okay, again, nothing that she said was about the kids at all. It's about the teachers, it's about indoctrinating, it's about making sure that when these kids do get to higher education, that they're ready to go to protest, to put the tents up on campus and all these other things. It's utterly ridiculous. In Madison in particular, the university, it's a good school. It's one of the top schools, but there are, per capita, probably more socialists and communists than any other place in the entire country outside of New York.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got some volume out there right now. There was an accident on southbound 270 approaching 55, and it was on the right-hand side. They had the lanes blocked down there, and traffic is really stacked up behind it. So it looks to be like they've gotten that mostly moved off to the shoulder. So things are easing just a bit, but if you're caught in a jam, that's why. The other serious jam is eastbound downtown on 6440 headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. Road work in the two left lanes on the bridge to blame. That road work will be in place until Wednesday at 4 p.m. That's put extra volume on the other bridges. And westbound 64, it's the usual volume approaching Hampton out through McCausland. It's not bad on 70 if you take that one instead. This report brought to you by Barron Mirror Glass and Door. They have the largest, most beautiful showroom in all of St. Louis. It's full of the latest, most custom designs. It's in Chesterfield Valley. And there you'll see why they say creativity unlimited, quality unsurpassed. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's Traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Big trucks, big damage. And when you're the one left injured, you need someone who knows how to take on the trucking companies and win. You need Kaufman Townsley. Our attorneys live and work right here in St. Louis. We act fast, we dig deep, and we don't back down. Trucking accidents are serious, and so are we. Kaufman Townsley. Real people, real results. Call 314-777-7777.
2026, I've been hearing from customers and friends that their utility bills went up quite a bit for their electric bill. That being said, and you're looking at buying a new air conditioner, or you're thinking, hey, I guess let's just get an air conditioner so it helps with the electric bills. If you have an old system, it definitely can help you. But watch your thinking. Just because you are told this is a so-called high-efficient air conditioner, it's not going to save you nowhere near what you think it's going to save you. Just replacing your old equipment is the biggest thing, and make your house efficient. An air conditioner is not going to make your house efficient. That being said, it's a great time to purchase an air conditioner if you get the correct one. Don't overspend. Don't believe the hype. In other words, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Call me, Bart Inman, at 314, one easy number, Missouri and Illinois, 314-293-2600. Again, the easiest of numbers, 314-293-2600, or bartinman.com. God bless.
This is Congressman Bob Onder. Americans demanded border security, and House Republicans delivered. According to the Department of Homeland Security, for 10 consecutive months, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has reported 0 illegal aliens released at the border. I'm proud to have worked with the Trump administration to secure our southern border and uphold our immigration laws, and will keep fighting to advance strong policies that protect Missourians and keep America safe.
Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
5:33. This portion of the show is sponsored by our friends at Jerry Kelly Heating, Air Conditioning, Electrical, and Plumbing.
From High Ridge to Pontoon Beach, 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Cardinals and Blues studio host Scotty Warmann, and all-around great guy and friend, is with us tonight to talk a little sports. Hello, Mr. Warmann. How are you?
I'm doing well. Marky, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. The Cardinals actually about to get going down in Miami this evening, right?
That is exactly correct. The Cardinals, who I think have surprised everyone right now.
Let me hold on that. We'll talk Blues first, because the Blues just wrap up the season. I mean, look, it was an amazing finish, right? And the fans, I had not gone to a game this year, and that's shameful on me. Sometimes they get out to a few, but I mean, the fans really stuck with this team all the way through, didn't they?
Certainly did. Sold out all the way through the end of the season. So, you can't discredit this fandom. You know, the Blues, and they even admitted it in their press conferences on Saturday at the end of the season that very disappointed how the season started. And again, just like it happened last year, once you got back from the break, it was 4 nations a year ago. This year was the Olympic break. The Blues just got hot and played some great hockey, some of the best hockey in all the National Hockey League. Now, the thing is why aren't they starting better? And so I think that's obviously one of many things that will transpire with this team, this organization. It's going to be an off season of change after many years. Doug Armstrong is relieving himself of the duties as the GM. His former Blue Alexander Steen will take over as the general manager, but Doug will still be a part of it as he'll be still the president of hockey operations. So it's going to be very intriguing what happens with this team moving forward as far as what they're going to do moves-wise, which is always intriguing during an off-season, but especially like this because you do have some good parts. They want to rebuild with some of the young talent like Jimmy Snuggerud, among others. But, what happens to try to make this team to a position to get back into the playoffs? And they also have three first-round draft picks, I should say, with some of the deals they made at the trade deadline. So I think we're going to see a very, very interesting offseason for sure with the hockey team.
What would your expectation be with Jordan?
Bennington?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of debate amongst the crew that I work with. Some think that he will stay. I would be a little surprised if he stays at $6 million a year as a backup goaltender. Obviously, there's going to be a conversation between Jordan and Alexander Steen and Doug Armstrong where he wants to move forward. I hate to see him go, but Joel Holfer was just so good, Mark, that he's got 1 year left on his contract, meaning Jordan Bennington. If there's a team out there that wants to win and feels that maybe he's the final missing piece, you have to look at and explore that situation. Now, he does have, I believe, a partial no-trade clause in his contract. Mm-hmm. So that's something that if the Blues would go that route, they'd obviously have to clear through him, just like they did with Justin Falk and Braden Shin leading into the trade deadline. But I think it's a great question, Mark, and I think the Blues really need to seriously look at something like that because, again, Joel Holfer just played outstanding hockey between the pipes after a rough first month of the season.
Is it a situation, and I just don't know enough about the landscape here when it comes to the offseason in hockey, but is there a scenario where the Blues would try to go out and sign a significant free agent or not?
No, I don't think so. Okay. Two reasons for that is the free agents that are available this summer just really aren't that tantalizing. I don't think the Blues are just one player away from really making it. When you get close like that, that's when you kind of go for broke and try to get one of those top free agents if you have the cap room. The Blues, I believe, will have some cap room because there's going to be a significant increase as far as the cap is concerned in all the National Hockey League. But the Blues also have to sit back and honestly, Mark, they have to watch, where they're at from a financial standpoint. The company I used to work for used to give them a significant amount of money to broadcast all the games.
Right.
And while the Blues are working on that deal, I don't know if they're going to wind up getting that significant amount of money that they've gotten for so many years. So that might have to be an actual adjustment that the Blues might have to look into as they move forward as far as, what they're going to do as far as spending money, because normally this organization spends all the way to the cap every single time. So are they still going to have the ability, is Tom Stillman and the ownership group going to give Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen that opportunity to do so with some of those extra revenues not there like it has been in years past?
Let's talk some baseball, Scotty Warmann. It's interesting to me. You look at, the one thing I could say is at least we're not the New York Mets. They've lost 11 in a row. They're sitting at, 7-15 in the National League East. Here's what's interesting about the Central. Every single team in the Central has a winning record. The Brewers, technically in last place, are 12-9. The Cubs 12-9. The Pirates 13-9. The Cardinals 13-9. The Reds 14-8. That's kind of crazy. You don't see that a lot.
No. In fact, I believe there's only 4 or 5 teams in all the American League that are 500 or better. And you have a whole division, which I know isn't always highly thought of, but you have a lot of young talent, especially with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Chicago, Milwaukee's obviously going to be there because there's such a well-run organization. But the Cardinals obviously have to be one of the biggest surprises. Again, we're 3 weeks into this.
Right, it's early.
I think it's been a pleasant surprise. I think they've been fun to watch. And I think they're just playing loose, honestly. Here's a young team that doesn't have a lot of expectations, Mark. I think we all know that. and these kids are going out and they're busting tail. And obviously, the home runs haven't been aplenty here of late, but I think just, again, watching Jordan Walker, and he's continued his hit streak as of yesterday, has been a great find for this ball club. And, if this continues, then maybe they have something in right field. The kid's an amazing talent, and we're starting to see that. I was working with Al Rabosky just over a week ago when the Cardinals were hosting the Red Sox, and Hungo and I were actually talking about this off the air, is the fact that, Walker's going to wind up getting in a slump. That happens with everybody. Yeah. It's nature of the beast, so to speak. And how does he respond? Now, if he comes back after a couple, 2-3 weeks where he's ice cold and he starts slugging the baseball again, then you know what? You might have somebody, which what I think be huge for this organization, huge for this fan base, and obviously would maybe be a little bit at ease as far as Chaim Bloom is concerned of looking at, the near future when you have a guy in the middle lineup like that. But it's been fun to watch all these kids play the way they have been. And, obviously the big question I think everybody has is, can the pitching hold up through an entire year? Because that's probably one of the weak links that this team has coming into this year.
So one of the questions I would have asked you 1 week ago is, what the hell's going on with Mason Wynn? I'm very worried. I'm not as worried today, though, right?
Well, he went home over the weekend and got some home cooking in. It's all good now.
I mean, yeah, he looked great the last few games, so I hope that continues. That Cusumano said that, you take all the family that was with him down there in Houston and bring them to Miami and see what that produces, because that was a lot of fun. Yeah. Look, it's great to see. We could be talking in 3 weeks and they're below 500. Who knows? But this is a team that is giving those of us who are baseball fans something to follow, to watch, to get excited about, to have a little fun with, and that is all we can ask for right now, understanding the lay of the land. But man, if Gorman can kind of heat up a little bit, there are pieces here. If they come together, it could be interesting to see over the next couple of months.
There's no doubt about it, and I think that's what we've all grown up here, and there have been times where it's not been the best of baseball, but we've been blessed with a lot of baseball over these many decades. But even as we've all grown up here, that if you got a team out there that's busting tail and giving 100%, and maybe you're not going to win, but at least you've been competitive, the fans are going to come out, they're going to watch this ball club, and they're going to watch the team on TV or listen to them on the radio, because people here enjoy a team that gives 100%. And I think we're seeing that from this ball club, and I think you have to commend Ollie Marmol for what he's done with this young ball club and keeping them together and having a great attitude to start the season.
Yeah, and you can kind of, look, they say this, that winning kind of feeds upon itself. Losing does that too. But if you can get a little spark, and like even something yesterday, Jordan had a little bit of a dribbler that I can't remember if it was an error or not, but he had enough effort to make it out and to run that play out. You kind of think back to when Yachty would have had a dribbler. He wouldn't have been halfway down the base path. But, there's effort. There's great defense that I'm seeing here, and that's a lot of fun. What is your opinion, your early opinion of ABS? In the first week of the season, there were things that were just not sitting right with me, but I barely even notice it now.
I like it, actually. I think you've seen a lot of correction. The biggest thing that I questioned was the fact that, how quickly are we going to turn around games? Because that's one of the things out of all the criticisms, and I think there are some just criticisms, what Major League Baseball has done with some of their moves and different rules and what have you, is picking up the pace of play. They had to do it because they were losing even some of their diehards because it was just so slow. So for me, the pace of play was one of the biggest things, and I don't think we've been hampered at all early on as far as pace of play is concerned. But as all the guys will tell you, if you watch games on a daily basis, even outside the Cardinals, you'll notice that the strike zone has shrunk a bit with the ABS system. So it'll be intriguing to see how they use that moving forward, because, a lot of walks, that's going to slow the game down, what have you. And I'm always been a proponent of having a bigger strike zone. The strike zone that was supposed to be, when we were growing up, it's supposed to be shoulders to knees, right?
Yeah, right.
I would like to see more of that, forcing the offense to swing the bat instead of being so selective. Let's see action on the field. So, but I have no complaints. I think it's been a great addition to the game.
We need steroids is what we need. We need steroids back, Scotty. What can I say? Awesome to hook up with you. Thank you so much. And let's see if this ride continues for the Cardinals. We'll catch up later. Thank you.
You got it, buddy.
All right,
Thanks.
take care.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, we've had some issues on the roads this afternoon. If you are just headed out, things are actually improving. So southbound 270, a little moderate volume now at 21. They cleared the accident there. Where we still have heavy traffic is eastbound 6440 headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. Road work in the left lanes on the bridge to blame. Those, by the way, the lanes will be closed through Wednesday at 4. Also, eastbound 70 jams at 64 on the Illinois side. 70 westbound now looks good out of downtown. Moderate volume on 64 out at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Let's show our appreciation for local heroes. Mark Cox here. Nominate a first responder and their department could get lunch from Grill Master Tony's. I'll personally deliver it. Share their story at 971talk.com. Nominate them today.
Triton Exteriors, St. Louis roofing, siding, and gutter systems. We'll take care of you and your home. We're #1 in the Ladue, Kirkwood, and Webster area. James Hardy certified. Visit Triton.stl.com to be connected with a James Hardy expert and receive a free estimate. Triton-stl.com or call 314-717-1159. That's 314-717-1159. Triton Exteriors, St. Louis #1 James Hardy specialists.
The cost of living is going up, Social Security is going down, and who knows where the stock market is going. There are a lot of things you can't control about retirement, but there's one thing you can. You can call the team at Ricken Financial. Their focus has always been preserve what you have and build a paycheck that comes in every month. Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation meeting, 314-207-6211 or at rickenfinancial.com.
Investment advisory products and services made available through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor.
If you suffer from burning, tingling, or numb feet, pay special attention as we discuss neuropathy with Dr. Patton, D.C. Doctor, what is neuropathy?
Peripheral neuropathy is nerve damage to the feet and legs.
What are the symptoms?
The symptoms are numbness, burning, tingling, pain, and loss of balance.
Is neuropathy treatable?
It's absolutely treatable, and we have amazing results.
If you have burning, tingling, numbness, coldness in your feet or hands or balance issues, call us at Comprehensive Integrated Health today for a nerve damage screening. The screening will tell if you're at risk for serious complications and if you're a candidate for our cutting-edge treatment program. Don't wait until your symptoms are so severe nothing can be done. End-stage neuropathy leaves people confined to walkers, wheelchairs, and even amputations. The first 10 callers will receive a free nerve damage screening. Call 636-538-5188. That's 636-538-5188 for your free nerve damage screening. 636-538-5188.
Nothing makes a gathering great like Eggland's Best Eggs. They're just so delicious with better nutrition, too. For us, it's eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Mark Reardon is St. Louis Conservative.
I have audio cut of the day coming up here in just a bit. I didn't want to skip this story. This is just a terrible story, though, that happened over the weekend down in Louisiana, where there was a father of 8 kids who shot and killed all these kids, like execution style, and also shot his wife, who actually survived. Shamar Elkins is the gunman. No surprise, they say he had mental health problems. Go figure. And had recently expressed suicidal thoughts. So this is just a terrible tragedy. These kids ranged in age from 3 until 11.
8 innocent children losing their lives as a result of domestic violence. There are no words that can fully capture the depth of this loss. No words that can ease the pain.
Really, really devastating in Shreveport.
The early mornings of that day will go down in history, be written in the pages of history, as one of the worst days that could have ever happened here in Shreveport.
You know, when things like this happen, there was I used to cover, I think I've talked about this before, I used to cover a lot of trials, and I was a news anchor when I was in Columbia, and reporter, news director as well. And, you go to a lot of trials, you hear details of murders. We had some really interesting murder cases when I was there, but there was one, and quite honestly, Sue, I don't even know, I should probably Google this and see if it was ever solved. There was something that happened. My mind is a little foggy on this. I was going to say maybe early 90s at a home in Columbia, and it was a brutal murder, right? And to my knowledge, I'm not even sure they ever caught the person that did this. But what I remembered, and this is what happens in a situation like this, is I remember talking to the prosecutor at the time. His name was Kevin Crane. He's a judge now in mid-Missouri, and he said that it was, and I've talked to cop friends, with situations like this as well. He said it was the worst crime scene that he had ever walked into.
Mark.
And that was one person who was killed. Okay. So imagine, sometimes we don't think about this because, this is devastating for friends, for family members, all this. But can you even imagine being the officers or the medical examiner that had to go in with 8 little kids as victims in this home? Now, that guy's dead too, thank God. They're not sure if he shot himself or the cops took him out. The wife is still alive, but I can't even fathom how mentally you could get through that, having to see something as awful as that. It's like the Kohlberger case too, really. Let's face it, it's like any brutal murder. To come across that, I was talking about this, Mariah Wilson documentary that's on Netflix right now. This poor girl's friend, who is simply just having her stay at her apartment in Austin for a few days, comes home and randomly just finds this woman brutally shot 3 times in, her bedroom. And it was just awful. So,
the kids aspect of it would make it that much worse.
That much worse. I would agree. It almost has to, right?
Yeah.
So that's just awful, and one of the stories that unfortunately is out there and, probably not getting a ton of attention just because of the rest of the things that are happening in the news cycle. But I do have audio cut of the day.
Stand by. Playback ready.
Now, the audio cut of the day.
Look, I started with this, and I want to wrap with it a little bit, too, because I did think it was an interesting and relatively well-balanced piece last night on 60 Minutes about the situation, specifically not with the war against Iran, but with specifically HEU, which is highly enriched uranium.
What can you do with that?
So that is enough material for, if you enrich it just a little bit more, for 10 to 11 nuclear bombs.
Nuclear analysts have become increasingly concerned about another site in Iran known as Pickaxe Mountain. Satellite images from February show an entrance to what's believed to be a massive nuclear facility deep under solid rock.
So the background to this story, and I explained this a little early, I would highly recommend watching it. You can see it on Paramount Plus, is they went back to something called Project Sapphire, which in the aftermath of the Cold War, in what became Kazakhstan, they discovered a big plant for highly enriched uranium. And this stuff was enriched to 90%. So that was very, very close to, or it was enough to make a bomb. So the U.S. gets involved. They call it Project Sapphire. They bring it all back. It's very costly. You have to be very, very careful. They bring it to Tennessee. I want to look into this. I don't know why, but they take it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, into a compound, and there it's protected. So, in this situation with Iran, you do the same. There are, experts that would have to go in and make sure that you get the right stuff from these mountains, and that was some of the stuff that was covered here.
On your way to Iran's stockpile and get it and remove it?
I don't think that there is a lasting, durable solution to Iran's nuclear program through military means.
Scott Roker was a top official in the NNSA, a $24 billion agency buried inside the Department of Energy. He left in 2021.
If there was a deal between the United States and Iran for the United States to take possession of that material, it would be the National Nuclear Security Administration that would lead that effort.
Now, look, we've talked about this a couple of times with 2 different guests this afternoon. I think that is very likely for the Iranians to say, come on in to the mountains, right? Let's just give you all the UAE, or I think I said it the wrong way, HEU, not the United Arab Emirates, the highly enriched uranium.
Roker used lessons learned from Project Sapphire to remove nuclear material from countries around the world and ship it to the U.S. for safekeeping. So far, the NNSA has removed more than 16,000 pounds of HEU.
There was agreement in place with the countries, and so that's a really key fact here. You want to have a willing partner who's working with you hand in hand.
Cooperation.
Exactly.
Can it be done without that?
I've never seen it done without that. Mm-hmm. Never in my experience have I seen that.
If your phone rang tomorrow and your former colleague said, hey, come back, we're going into Isfahan to package this up and get it out of the country, would you go?
I would go in a heartbeat.
That was weird. It was an awkward laugh, but I think he, believes he would go in a heartbeat because he's trying to save the world a little bit here from the nuclear threat. But it was interesting. Now, Jim Talent, kind of didn't think that this was a scenario that would happen, and I don't either. But the experts in that story were saying, look, if you really want to go in here militarily, the bombs aren't going to reach them. They're too far underground. The tunnels are so far underground that we can't get to them. So then the question becomes, can you raid the facility? There were experts in that story last night that said, yeah, look, U.S. Special Forces have been training for a long time for things along those lines. They can absolutely do that. But then you get, boots on the ground and, the term thousands of military troops was used in that story last night. I guess the most interesting thing was going back in history and seeing what happened in the early 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union and realizing that they had enriched uranium that really, really could have been dangerous, that we go in there and very secretly and covertly remove because it was important to the planet. In this situation, I don't think you have enough cooperation with whoever claims to be in charge in Iran to get something where we're going to be able to achieve that. So then you're left with this situation. If the bombing ends, you blow up the bridges, you blow up the power plants, you say, okay, we're done here. Well, are we? If we're because I've heard people say even in the last week, well, it might not be obliterated. Trump said it was obliterated, but we've definitely, Carafano said this last week, we've delayed it by 10 years or 15. Well, that's not our goal. Our goal is to stop this and stop it right now, and that does not seem achievable in a short time frame.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Things are thinning out nicely on the roads. If you are headed for Illinois, that's the only exception. On eastbound 64, it's all due to road work in the left lanes on the bridge. Westbound 40 looks good out of downtown. A little bit of moderate volume out at Prospect. 55 is in good shape. We're quiet through North County. And all the other bridges besides the Poplar look good downtown. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
It's Mark Cox. If you enjoy your backyard like I do, you need to reach out to